चलिए अब आज की प्रोसीडिंग चालू करते हैं। Friends, today we merged both the session 1 and 2 actually speaker, and we are fortunate enough to we have Member of Parliament Shri Jagannath Sarkar ji. He is a Member of Parliament from Ranagar, West Bengal. He was a teacher basically, but he is very much interested in साहित्य में जैसे होता है विवेकानंद टैगोर इनके सब के बारे में ज़्यादा पढ़ते रहते हैं काफ़ी, तो उनकी फिलॉसफी से काफ़ी प्रभावित हैं। तो और देशभक्ति जब आप विवेकानंद जी को और टैगोर जी को पढ़ते हैं तो देशभक्ति कूट कूट के भर जाती है आपके अंदर। तो वैसे भी आरएसएस से काफ़ी जुड़े हुए हैं, ज़मीन से जुड़े हुए आदमी हैं और बहुत ही सोबर पर्सनैलिटी। सो ही इज़ kindly agreed to come for this, to inaugurate this session for today. And we have Mr. Pankaj Som Chaturvedi. Pankaj Som Chaturvedi is a president, he's advisor to CSR Research Foundation. And he is a president of Indian Energy Storage Research Foundation. And he is a co-organizer for this event also. Yesterday, because of some meetings there, he could not come, but today he is with us for full day. He is a technology expert, and with CSR Research Foundation, he has written a book also on blockchain technology. And many things I know about him, but I have written some of the points. The solar energy, which we are talking today, he is advisor in MNRE for solar energy. He is also advisor to Haryana government on energy. He is giving a lot of advices what Haryana government should do. And he will be talking today on role of Ministry for Skill Development, MNRE, MSME for greener and vibrant future. So he will be talking on that subject. Next is we have Mr. Rajiv Kumar. He is head of the environment of ONGC and very passionate about environment. आप जब भी उनसे बात करेंगे तो लगेगा वो environment पे पूरा जैसे हो जाता पूरी तरह से ओतप्रोत है। So he has done many things with the ministry also, and the policy framework he was associated with MNRE. I think he has done a lot of job on that. One of the main activity, the achievement of Mr. Rajiv is previously we have a two type of wells, exploratory and development. Developments, you are drilling for production of oil and gas. Exploratory, we are just searching that yes, there is some oil or not. So for both this, we have to take the clearances. Now, with his efforts, I think he was alone there and discussing with the ministers, with Secretary Petroleum and Secretary MOEF. So he has convinced them that yes, exploratory wells not required to be taken permission for what we need. Otherwise, taking permission from the different departments were taking a lot of time. So now that has been agreed by ministry, and on that notification has already come. So I compliment Rajiv for helping the industry in this regard. Thank you, Rajiv, for that. हाँ, मनोज विशद मनोज के बारे में बोल रहा हूँ। पहले इनका एक दो और पॉइंट है जो मैं सोचा था, लेट पीपल नो अबाउट दैट। पाइपलाइन में जो स्लज है उसके लिए भी इन्होंने काफ़ी काम किया है, and he has come out with many ideas, and he constantly thinking that how we can make our environment neat and clean. I think that way, and he can speak on many subjects because he has come to one of our conference also. There he spoke a lot of things. So make use of Mr. Rajiv. Ask a lot of questions to him because he's from the industry, and what best you can do for your industry, you can ask him. He can suggest you in that way. We have Mr. Manoj Mishra with us. He is in charge of Dahej plant. It's basically C2, C3. वहाँ पे हम निकालते हैं और उस प्लांट के पूरा इंचार्ज पूरी तरह से इंचार्ज है और लगभग 5 साल से उस प्लांट में काम कर रहे हैं ये 2 साल पहले उनको वहाँ पे उनका इंचार्ज बनाया गया है ही इज़ एन एग्जीक्यूटिव डायरेक्टर इन ओएनजीसी एंड ही हैज़ डन मेनी he has got a lot of accolades for him. He has got Young Executive of the Year award from ONGC. He has got the Manager of the Year award for managing the things, and very passionate about oil and gas. He's basically a production engineer, but now in ONGC he's a production engineer. Production engineers means you have to think about how to produce oil and gas more effectively and more safely, and that is his forte. So he is here with us. So I'd like to request Dindayal ji to escort our chief guest for today, Mr. Chaturvedi ji. Please come to the dais. Mishra ji and Rajiv ji, please. So start with the Som Chaturvedi ji. आप कितने देर रुको? So ठीक चलिए वो पॉलिटिकल लोगों को ज़्यादा देर रोक पाना बहुत मुश्किल काम होता है बट ही हैज़ एग्रीड आई थिंक फर्स्ट वी लिसन टू मिस्टर सोम चतुर्वेदी Pankaj Som Chaturvedi ji. So I request Mr. Pankaj Som Chaturvedi to come and deliver his talk.
Om. Firstly, I thank Mahavar Saab for starting today's session with such wonderful introductions about the session today, and I'm honored to be on the dais with such eminent and illustrious industry experts and public figures like our chief guest for today, Sarkar Saab. ये उठा दीजिए जरा ये signage. Sorry. The platform that I have today, being from the CSR Research Foundation, which is led by Dindayal ji, has been a very enabling experience for me. So today I'm going to be talking to you about the role of the Ministry of Renewable Energy, the skill development, and also the MSME sector in together leading India to a global leadership position for clean and green energy. What I will be talking about are basically based on the interactions and on the experience that I have had working with the Ministry of Renewable Energy at the Government of India level and with the Government of Haryana. And I was also fortunate to work on 3 separate projects when Modi ji was the Chief Minister of Gujarat. So I'll bring some of those experiences to you, and hopefully at the end of my talk, which I have for about 10 minutes, Mahavar Sahab, right? I have about 10 minutes. At the end of that, I would be able to leave you with some possible interventions in whatever sphere of public sector or professional life that you are in, where the CSR Research Foundation could also play a very important role in your organization working with the CSR Research Foundation for taking India towards this, beyond this summit, so on action items. So basically, India's, I will talk first about India's renewable energy journey. India's renewable energy journey really started with a focus on biofuels and Nutan Chula. That's where we started. And then very quickly we moved to what is called Pavan Chakki. We had a lot of movement towards Pavan Chakki, and that was, and then to hydro, to water wheels. And so these were all things which were very isolated, more by way of just token thing. And there was a small department called renewable energy. It was a department which was actually some very outlying area of the government and enabling sector. It was actually in the beginning of the new millennium that the whole world focus started coming on to renewable energy in a very big way. New technology developments took place, and that accelerated the growth. And in India, we had an advantage because we could leapfrog, we could jump from a very backward area in terms of renewable energy to a very forward area. And in that, we had incubation. That was a very important enabler of growth. We had incentive programs, and we had a lot of skill development. So I'm going to come to that in a little while. MNRE, I mean, everybody knows MNRE, so I don't have to speak too much about MNRE. But what many people don't know, let me speak about those aspects. MNRE today has funds, whether for themselves or for their community. And this is something which is somehow not very much publicized, but it is there. I will give one example to you. The Honorable Prime Minister launched a scheme known as PM Kusum Yojana. How many in the audience have actually known about this enabling Yojana? So PM Kusum Yojana is designed to provide solar energy intervention to farmers, agricultural farmers, in two ways. One, for providing the largest energy needs of farmer, which is for irrigation pumping. It will be done on the solar pumping system, completely free of cost, absolutely free of cost to the farmer. The other is to put solar energy systems up to 5 megawatt on existing agricultural land, in a way that you could continue to do agriculture and also you could do solar energy generation. So the farmer whose maximum earning is through maybe 3 crop cycles is now able to have a monthly income by selling the electricity to the grid. And this allows for farmers who are having smaller land holdings, typically in the vicinity of larger cities, where otherwise they are finding it extremely unviable to do farming. Now they are able to find a viable alternative. They are not being forced to sell off their land and go and do some jobs. They can continue to be people producing food for our country, while the so MNRE has programs like this. And I will be available on the CSR Research Foundation contact after this summit. If any of you want to reach out on specifics, then Deen Dayal ji and his team can connect me with you on that. There's also, we have this 2-day event is being supported by IREDA, and IREDA is a very, very wonderful organization. Anybody from IREDA is here today? So I really compliment you, your organization, and I have had an association from way back in 2008. when I did a small program. At that time, the minister was Mr. Mutembar. So we did a program. Now, IREDA has done a yeoman job in the National Solar Mission programs, as well as for briquetting and many other solar thermal programs. So let me give one example. I don't know if you gentlemen are also aware of this aspect or not. You know, cold storage is a very big problem because of the energy requirement. So if you go to areas like Kanpur or any of these vegetable or fruit areas and milk areas, you find that very big problem is of providing energy, viable energy in terms of cost and availability to cold storage systems. There are programs which are funded by the UN along with IREDA, where you would need to put only 20% investment of your own to get solar thermal based chilling, air conditioning, and cold storage set up at any location in India, including in the tropical locations. Now, solar thermal is very different from solar photovoltaic. The advantage of solar thermal systems for this is that in monsoon type of period where you don't get the solar thermal energy, you can augment it by any other combustible fuel, which could also be briquettes or any biofuel. So you would be doing something which is very much economically relevant aspect. Now, so this is the part about the MNRE. So there are entities within the MNRE like IREDA, the Solar Energies Corporation of India, which are independent organizations. They are under the umbrella of MNRE, but they are a wealth of things which you can use. There is a difference between education, capacity building, and skill training. And I have found that the fastest enabler of adoption and actual usage is at technician level skill development in any of these technologies. So what happens? We get a EV, let us say, we get a solar powered system for recharging of the electric rickshaws in a small rural area in some place. And because electricity is available in almost all the villages, but petrol is not available in all the villages. So electric mobility for rural India is actually a game changer. So today, when you have the typical scenario is, there's a village. From the village, everybody comes to the main road. On the main road, there is a chai ka dukan where you wait and the bus will come. Sometimes you sit in the bus, you take your basket of vegetables, you go to the taluka mandi, and then in the evening you come back like that. This is a system which has been there since 1960s. But today, with the incentives available, you could just in the villages, even in the panchayat land, in the school areas of the village also, you can set up a solar powered system to charge the electric vehicles like e-rickshaws or e-thelas. प्रॉब्लम कहां पे आएगी? प्रॉब्लम यहां पे आता है कि अगर छोटा सा भी उसमें चीज खराब हो जाता है, you don't have a person to repair or replace it. And this is very important. The skill development is very important. So from the year 2010 to 2014, I was personally involved in the coastline areas of Gujarat in training villagers on solar systems and on wind systems, small wind systems. So in the solar systems, one of the things we did, which Sarkar Sahab will find very interesting, the fish that is collected, it has to be sold fresh. But many times there is a glut, there is an oversupply, sometimes there is a market supply and demand issues. So making solar powered fish and vegetable dryers in villages in Gujarat have increased the income of those villagers by more than 3 times. All of it is documented because we did skill development. Incentives are already there, the enabling structure is already there. करने वाले लोगों को स्किल नहीं है. आज इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल्स इतने सिंपल हैं, दे आर फार मोर सिंपल टू रिपेयर देन एनी गैसोलीन पावर्ड ऑटो रिक्शाज एंड अदर्स, बट उनको रिपेयर करने वाला इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर अभी स्किल डेवलपमेंट में मिसिंग है. So what are the enabling roles of MSME? In MSME ministry also, if you are working or having your own MSME, and any of the processes that you are doing, whether it is industrial heating process, whether it is a electrically driven process, whether it is a process which is requiring a lot of water usage, every single aspect of an MSME, typically I would say, in India, whether it is even packaging, today you can go for a clean energy alternative which is going to be funded for you by more than 80% in real terms, by various baskets of incentives which can be all put together. And it's a great opportunity, because your running cost with renewable energy systems comes down greatly, your reliability on self sufficiency increases, and as a nation, our country which is importing almost all the fossil fuel, हम लोग वास्तविक रूप में आत्मनिर्भर तब होंगे जब हम ऊर्जा में आत्मनिर्भर हो पाएंगे. तो बहुत जरूरी है कि हम लोग ग्रीन एनर्जी के अंदर भारत को एक विश्व का बहुत अग्रिम स्थान प्रदान करने के लिए प्रयास करें. मेरी आप लोगों से एक और उम्मीद है कि जो नए क्षेत्र हैं इस अक्षय ऊर्जा के उसमें पहलू में, उनमें इस सरकार ने बहुत सारे नए इंसेंटिव्स अनाउंस किए हैं, जैसे कि ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन. पिछली जो कॉन्फ्रेंस दीनदयाल जी ने CSR रिसर्च फाउंडेशन ने की थी, उसमें बहुत बढ़िया पार्टिसिपेशन हमारा हुआ था ऑन ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन. भारत विश्व का सबसे नंबर 1 सबसे ज्यादा बड़ा लीडर ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन में होने वाला है, और ये इतना जल्दी होगा कि हम लोग अनुमान नहीं लगा पाएंगे, क्योंकि ये बहुत इजी लो हैंगिंग फ्रूट है. लेकिन इसके डाउनस्ट्रीम एंड अपस्ट्रीम में स्मॉल एंटिटीज ऑल्सो हैव अ ह्यूज रोल टू प्ले. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, फोर्कलिफ्ट, जितने अभी ये ई कॉमर्स साइट्स हो रहे हैं, जितने भी हमारे अभी इस समय वेयर हाउसिंग के अंदर बहुत बड़ा रेवोल्यूशन हो रहा है, तो जो फोर्कलिफ्ट होती है, फोर्कलिफ्ट जो है वो इलेक्ट्रिक या डीजल से जो चलती है, उसको आप बहुत आराम से क्लीन एनर्जी पे और हाइड्रोजन पे आप ला सकते हैं. बहुत छोटी कॉस्ट है. जैसे पहले ऑटो रिक्शा को गैस का किट लगाया गया था, इस तरह का ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन का बहुत बड़ा एक पहलू आपके सामने उपलब्ध है, तो आप उसको देख सकते हैं. इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल और सोलर पंपिंग में बहुत सारा काम हो सकता है. आपके घरों में काम हो सकता है, आपके ऑफिसेज में काम हो सकता है. Urban farming again is a very important aspect, and in which again renewable energy will play a role. Biofuel policy, we have got a lot of experts in these 2 days who will be talking about all these things. My last area of passion, discussion, and desire is to encourage you to think about energy storage. That is an area which is again very exciting. The battery technology is moving so fast, but battery is only one type of energy storage. We have flywheel storage, we have thermal storage, we have so many other hydro storage systems, and these are some things which can be having a role of MSME to produce. It has a role of skill development, it has a role of using India going forward as a clean development leader in the world. I once again want to thank Deendayal Agarwal ji and Mahavar ji for according me this honor, and I apologize to our member of parliament Sarkar Saab for taking the dais before he could speak, but I am happy to be here today. I will be here during the day also, and if there are any questions, I can answer them now, or we can meet afterwards on a cup of coffee and I can answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Pankaj. Thank you very much. I think he has given a lot of inputs about what MNRE is doing and what MSME sector can do and what we all can do in this sector. So Now, actually, this lighting of lamp was to be done because Honorable Member of Parliament is here. So I request all the dignitaries to come to the lighting of lamp ceremony. और मैंने पूछा भाई लैंप लगाया क्यों नहीं, बोला सर हम उसको चमका रहे थे। हमने कहा भाई टाइम इज इम्पोर्टेंट, चमकाना इतना इम्पोर्टेंट नहीं तो है क्या वहाँ पे? अजय तो है नहीं, अजय तो सोरे बाहर है शायद। Okay, now I request Honorable Member of Parliament, Sri Jagannath Sarkarji, to come and give his address, please.
पहले तो बधाई दे रहा हूँ CSR रिसर्च फाउंडेशन को। इसको जो प्रोग्राम हो रहा है अभी, प्रोग्राम में अभी जो महार जी नहीं है ना, आप है ना? अच्छा, हमारा CSR फाउंडेशन का दीनदयाल जी है, राजीव जी है और सभी मनोज मिश्रा जी, सभी जाने माने बहुत महत्वपूर्ण ये भूमिका निभा रहा है CSR के बारे में। तो पहले सामने जो बैठा हुआ जितने सज्जन वो समाज के साथ जुड़ा हुआ, वो CSR लेकर कैसे डेवलपमेंट हो सकती, किस किस बारे में ये सबसे महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका निभा सकते समाज के लिए, ये तो स्पेशलिस्ट जो है मंच पर बैठा है, इनका तो जानकारी बहुत अच्छा है। मैं तो CSR के बारे में कोई रिसर्च नहीं किया, लेकिन ये हो सकती, मैं सांसद होने के नाते मेरे जो क्षेत्र है बहुत महत्वपूर्ण, वहाँ सांसद बनने के लिए मैं भी धन्य हूँ। मेरा क्षेत्र वेस्ट बंगाल का वो नदिया डिस्ट्रिक्ट का नवद्वीप, पहले वो क्षेत्र का नाम नवद्वीप था, अभी रानाघाट लोकसभा हो गया। ये इतना महत्वपूर्ण क्षेत्र है, तब भी बहुत पिछले वर्ग आदमी वहाँ है। वो 2 डिस्ट्रिक्ट सारी हिंदुस्तान में अभी 70 डिस्ट्रिक्ट को चुना गया CSR के लिए, डेवलपमेंट होना चाहिए इस डिस्ट्रिक्ट को। बंगाल में 2 डिस्ट्रिक्ट चुना हुआ है, एक बीरभूम और एक नदिया। नदिया जो हमारा जो क्षेत्र, ये इतने महत्वपूर्ण है, इसलिए वहाँ स्वयं भगवान चैतन्य देव ने पैदा हुआ, श्री किसान जी उनका अवतार हुआ। वो सत्य में विष्णु अवतार हुआ, सत्य नारायण। उसका बाद मठ भूमि में त्रेता युग में भगवान रामचंद्र पैदा हुआ, और दापोर में भगवान श्री किसान जी, और कली युग का अवतार हमारा क्षेत्र में ही हुआ, वो नवद्वीप क्षेत्र। इसलिए ये महत्वपूर्ण है। देखिए, हमारा बहुत पुराना धाम है, काशी है, मथुरा है, अयोध्या है, लेकिन हमारा जो क्षेत्र नवद्वीप वाला किसी से कम नहीं है, उससे ज़्यादा महत्वपूर्ण इसलिए हुआ है। ये यही युग का, कली युग का हो, सबसे सनातनी के लिए ये होली प्लेस है। जैसा जेरूसलम ईसाई के लिए सबसे होली प्लेस है, सभी वो ईसाई आदमी वहाँ पुण्य के लिए वहाँ जाते हैं। ठीक वो मक्का में जाता है, जितने मुस्लिम लोग हैं उनका होली प्लेस वही है। लेकिन हमारा सनातनी के लिए अभी कलियुग का सबसे होली प्लेस है वो मेरा क्षेत्र, इसलिए मैं धन्य हूँ, पुण्य हूँ। ये ऐसे ऐसे पैदा नहीं हुआ। वो हमारा जो गीता का जो श्लोक है ना, जदा जदा ही धर्मस्य ग्लानि भवति भारत, वो जुग जुग में धर्म रक्षा के लिए वो पैदा होता है। वो बंगाल में द्वादश शताब्दी में मुस्लिम लोग का इख्तियारुद्दीन मोहम्मद बिन बख्तियार खिलजी ने चुपके सडनली घुसकर वो सेन राज खत्म करके वो राज शुरुआत किया। आज से 536 साल पहले चैतन्य देव पैदा हुआ। किस टाइम पैदा हुआ? वो जिस टाइम वहाँ काजी का राज चलता है, वो फतेहा दे दिया, यहाँ कोई सनातनी कारोबार नहीं चलेगा बंगाल में, तो चांद काजी उनका नाम था। तो उसी टाइम चैतन्य देव ने पैदा हुआ। अब पैदा होने के बाद एक पुरानी कहानी है, क्यों वहां पैदा हुआ। वो दापोर में भगवान श्री किसान जी रास उत्सव करते हैं सोखी लेकर। एक ही वो मैन है, वो रास कर सकते, क्यों? वो निष्काम आदमी था, इसलिए वो कर सकते। तो देवादेव महादेव का वो मनसा था, मैं रास देखूंगा, इसलिए वहां कोई पुरुष आदमी नहीं जा सकते, मेल आदमी घुस नहीं सकते। इसलिए जनाना साजकर रास जिस टाइम चल रहा है, भगवान किसान जी शो के साथ रास करते हैं, उसी टाइम घुस गया रास, वो चक्का बंद हो गया। भगवान किसान जी पहचान लिया देवादीप को, क्यों आप यहाँ आया? मेरा मनसा है, मैं राज देखूंगा, इसलिए मैं यहाँ छुपा कर लेडी सजकर मैं आया है। तो बोले ये युग में आपका संभव नहीं है, आप तो सकाम आदमी है, सकाम देवता है, इसलिए अब कामदेव है, इसलिए रास आप इस युग में नहीं देख सकते। वो कोली युग के हो सकते। मैं रास दिखाने के लिए वो पुराना धाम शहर नवद्वीप में मैं पैदा होंगे, आप शांतिपुर धाम में पैदा होने वाला वो अद्वैत रूप से। इसीलिए धर्म रक्षा के लिए वहां पैदा हुआ। जिस टाइम काजी का राज चलता है, वो वहां जाकर पैदा होने के बाद उसी टाइम काजी ने फतेहा दे दिया, यहाँ कोई सनातनी कारवां नहीं चलेगा, राम नाम नहीं चलेगा, कृष्ण नाम नहीं चलेगा। उसी टाइम चैतन्य ने छोटा छोटा गुट बनाकर एक टीम हरे कृष्ण वाला टीम बनाते हैं। उसी टाइम बंगाल में बहुत शाक्तों का प्रभाव था। काली भक्त, माँ काली का फॉलोअर्स है, अरबी है, शैव है, गणपत है, मुस्लिम लोग बहुत था। उसी टाइम काजी राज चल रहा है। वो इसी टाइप से छोटा छोटा गुट बनाकर सारी क्षेत्रों में काजी का राज घेरा लिया। एक दिन सडनली शाम तक वो सब एक साथ मिलाकर मशाल लेकर काजी का घर घेराव कर लिया, खोल करताल मशाल लेकर। ये कोई कहानी नहीं है, ये हिस्टोरिकल घटना है, फैक्ट है, ज्यादा दिन नहीं है। वो पैदा ही हुआ 536 साल पहले। तो इसलिए काजी तो डर गया, तब भी सरेंडर नहीं किया। उसी टाइम चैतन्य ने वो सुदर्शन चक्र का आह्वान किया। वो चेहरा देखकर काजी ने डर गया, उनका पैदल पर पड़ गया। पढ़ने के बाद वो खुद सनातनी बन गया, वैष्णव बन गया। ये वहाँ सभी है। वहाँ का एक चाप्पा गाज ट्री है, पौधा है, वहाँ समाधि है चांद काजी का, वो वैष्णव बन गया खुद। उसी टाइम वहाँ ज्यादा पिछले वर्ग का आदमी है, सबसे नीची आदमी है जवन हरिदास, छुआछूत बहुत था। चैतन्य ने वो सभी ब्राह्मण, उच्च वंश वर्ण का ब्राह्मण जो उनका वो बुला लिया, एक प्रोग्राम बना लिया। वो अपना हाथ से वो खाना पकाने का ऑर्डर दे दिया। वो उसी हाथ का पकना खाना वो खाते हैं, लेकिन आग नहीं दिया। तो अब कैसे खाना पकाएंगे? बोला आप तो ब्राह्मण है, आपका मुंह से आग लिख देते हैं, आप आग लगाइए ना। वो कर नहीं सके। तो उसी टाइम पिछले वर्ग जवन हरिदास उनको बुला लिया। वो बुलाकर दिखा दिया, उन्होंने खुद मुंह से आग लगा दिया। तो देखिए ब्रह्म तेज किसके है। हमारा समाज जो है ना, जन्म के साथ नहीं है, कर्मों के साथ है। भगवान श्री कृष्ण जी बोल दिया ना, चारी वर्णों पैदा हुआ, कर्मों से मैं भाग गया। चतुर्वर्ण माया सृष्ट गुण कर्म विभाग सहा, चारटी वर्णों मैं माया द्वारा सृष्टि किया, कर्म क्षेत्र से विभाजन है। इसीलिए वो पिछले वर्गों का मुंह में आग जलता है, वो भी ब्राह्मण है, ये देखा दिया। वो हमारा पौराणिक कहानी में बहुत मुनि ऋषि, वो ब्राह्मण नहीं था लेकिन ब्राह्मण बन गया। वो विश्वामित्र मुनि ब्राह्मण नहीं था, क्षत्रिय से ब्राह्मण बन गया। तो हमारा ये एक श्लोक है ना, जो बोलते हैं जन्मना जायते शूद्र संस्कारेण द्विज उच्यते, वेद पाठेन भवति विप्रो ब्रह्मो जानती सब ब्राह्मण। अर्थात सभी आदमी जन्म से शूद्र ही है। संस्कार मिलने के बाद संस्कारेण द्विज उच्यते, संस्कार के बाद वो द्विजो होता है। वेद पाठे न भवती विप्रो, वेद ज्ञान जिसको पास है वो विप्र है, लेकिन ब्रह्म ज्ञान जिस टाइम मिलेगा वो भी ब्राह्मण है। इसलिए वो दिखा दिया छुआछूत के बारे में, पिछले वर्ग के आदमी वो देखिए उनका वो भी ब्राह्मण हो सकते, उसको एक साथ खाना पकाकर समाज के एकत्रीकरण कर लिया। वो हम अलग नहीं है, एक है सब। हमारा नौ हिंदू पतितो भावे वो जो कहानी है ना, इसलिए वो दिखा दिया यह हमारा आदमी का कोई भेदभाव नहीं है, सब एक ही है। इसलिए बंगाल में छुआछूत के बारे में ज़्यादा नहीं है। तब भी पिछले वर्ग है वहाँ CSR के लिए डेवलपमेंट का जरूरी है, क्षेत्र बहुत अच्छा है। वो मेरा क्षेत्र है, वहाँ स्वयं चैतन्य देव पैदा हुआ। उसके बाद जो कहानी बोल दिया भगवान किसान जी देवादिदेव महादेव को, उसीलिए चैतन्य देव ने जितना शाक्त शैव सब एक करके वो राज सखी के साथ नहीं किया, वो किया सभी सनातनी को एक साथ जुट कर रास उत्सव किया। एक रास उत्सव ऐसा उत्सव है, सभी वो जो पद्धति है भगवान बोलने के प्रार्थना के लिए, जिसना टाइप है एक साथ रास उत्सव क्या करके सनातनी के एकजुट कर लिया। वहां से नेक्स्ट डे देवादिदेव महादेव शांतिपुर में पैदा हुआ। वो अद्वैतों के पास पैदल से खोल कत्तल लेकर स्वयं चैतन्य देव वहां आ गया, शांतिपुर आ गया। एक दिन बाद वो राज दिखाया, इतना महत्वपूर्ण राजा है मातृभूमि में। ये दोनों क्षेत्रों में भगवान चैतन्य किसान जी के अवतार, उन्होंने रास उत्सव किया मातृभूमि में। इसी रास अभी सारी वर्ल्ड में जितना रास मनाते हैं भगवान किसान जी के, पहले तो वहाँ ही हुआ है कलियुग का, इसलिए वो पुण्य भूमि है। वो सब बोलते हैं जो जो नहीं देखा रास वो मातृघर में गर्भ में करता है वास। रास देखना चाहिए। मेरा क्षेत्रों में शांतिपुर नवद्वीप पवित्र धाम है। अभी जितने सनातनी बढ़ रहा है वो अमेरिकन वाला, यूरोप वाला, वो ईसाई था, अभी हरे कृष्ण कर रहा है। वो जो बिल गेट्स, फोर्ड, सभी वहाँ एक मंदिर बना रहे हैं। यूरोपियन अमेरिकन जो है वो देखते हैं ये जो जितने रिलीजियन है, इसके बाद बहुत गड़बड़ी है, गंडगोल है। वो बहुत लड़ाई हुआ, क्रूसेड 8 बार क्रूसेड हुआ, तब भी ईसाई के साथ इस्लाम का कोई बनी बना नहीं होता है। लेकिन हमारा जो दर्शन है देखिए, हम क्या बोलते हैं, जे जथा मांग प्रपदंते तंस तथैव भजम अहम मम वर्तानुवर्तन्ते पार्थो मनुष्य सर्वसा। हे पार्थो, मुझे जिस रूप से जिस टाइम जैसा बोलते हैं उसी के पास उसी रूप से मैं पहुंच जाते हैं। इसलिए ये एक हमारा जो सनातनी है ये कोई मजहब के लिए नहीं है, सारी 2 मिनट ठीक है, हो गया मेरा बात। तो इसलिए वो दिखा दिया ये हमारा एक जो है ना कोई गड़बड़ नहीं है, हम सबको लेकर चलते हैं। ईसाई को लिए चल सकते, वो मुस्लिम लोगों के लिए चल सकते। हमारा सनातनी कारभार विवेकानंद ने वो बोल दिया, हमारा ये इतने उदारता है, मैं कोई मजहब के लिए लड़ाई नहीं करते, लेकिन वो कल्चरल जो है थीम जो है सभी आदमी का, सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामया सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखो भावेत्। ये भावना हमारा है, हमारा हिंदुस्तान का है। ये कल्चर रहना चाहिए, कल्चर के लिए काम करना चाहिए, तब भी हिंसा मुक्त विश्व बन सकते, नहीं कभी बन नहीं सकते। तो मेरा जो क्षेत्र है, ये जो पिछले वर्ग है, वहाँ कोई चैतन्य देव आया है, लेकिन बहुत साल वहाँ कम्युनिज्म था। उसके बाद दीदी कोई सभी के लिए सही दिशा से काम नहीं कर रहा है। स्टेट गवर्नमेंट के वहाँ डेवलप के लिए कोई प्रपोजल आते ही नहीं सेंट्रल का पास। एक काम करना एक ही मौका है, CSR लेकर काम कर सकते। मेरा क्षेत्र में आइए, जो करेगा मैं हेल्प करूंगा, मेरे क्या करना चाहिए करूंगा, लेकिन हमारा वो क्षेत्र का डेवलप होना चाहिए, बहुत पिछले वर्ग है। इसलिए ये वादा देकर मैं मेरा बात खत्म कर रहा हूँ। नमस्कार।
चैतन्य महाप्रभु के बारे में आपको मालूम नहीं होगा, इससे लग गया कि पढ़ाई लिखाई में कितने पैशनेट रहे हैं। अध्यापक कैसे होते हैं ना सब, जब आप टीचिंग करते हैं तो आपको लगता है कि जो जो ज्ञान है वो पूरा आपके साथ बांट लूँ, तो आपने पूरा ज्ञान लोगों को दिया। और CSR की डेफिनेटली एक्टिविटीज़ आप जब जैसा बता रहे हैं, हम कोशिश करेंगे कि उस क्षेत्र में भी ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा CSR का कार्य हो। ये बात हम लोगों को बताएंगे। तो अभी सर रुकेंगे या राजीव सर? अच्छा अच्छा। सो नेक्स्ट प्रेजेंटेशन है, राजीव जी एनवायरनमेंट के मास्टर हैं, तो आपको जो भी क्वेश्चन एनवायरनमेंट से रिलेटेड पूछना है। अच्छा अच्छा अच्छा, पार्लियामेंट चल रहा है, जैसे आप निकलेंगे पार्लियामेंट चल रहा है। सो आई नए बच्चों को बुला लेते हैं थोड़ा सा। आई रिक्वेस्ट मिस आदिति दास, है क्या? इरेडा से है। आने दो आने दो। संजय जी प्लीज, संतोष जैन आ जाओ। संतोष आ जाओ। चलिए अपने मेन फोकस पे आ जाए, ग्रीन एनर्जी, क्लीन एनर्जी एंड रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी। आई थिंक दैट इज द नीड ऑफ द आवर। सो आई रिक्वेस्ट राजीव जी प्लीज कम एंड प्रेजेंट। आपका प्रेजेंटेशन है ना? प्रेजेंटेशन है या जस्ट प्रेजेंटेशन? हाँ
एक बार ठीक है।
Very good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
At the outset, let me thank Sri Mahavar sir and Sri Deen Dayal Agrawal ji of CSR Research Foundation for taking up all good initiatives towards sensitization of the technocrats, public at large, and executives from the different PSUs. So let's have a big round of applause for these two gentlemen. See, in India, I feel sensitization of all the issues is a very, very important for us. Until we understand all burning issues where we need some kind of intervention. So that is a unique initiative, and we must compliment these two gentlemen for steering these green initiatives in a much bigger way. So coming to the today's topic, the topic which I have been assigned is upgradation in oil and gas sector and sustainable development. So I'll basically focus on what is the role of oil sector as an industry, being from ONGC, upstream oil industry. So I'll be concentrating more on the facets of oil industry as such, and then we'll try to link the sustainable development goals that we intend to achieve by 2030, and probably the foundation of these 17 numbers of sustainable development goals that was done in the year 2015, wherein the signatory were almost all 193 countries across the UN at that particular time. See, the basic focus was to have a all-round development across all the nooks and corners of the world. That was the aim with which the sustainable development goals were kept in mind. Now coming to the presentation, this oil and gas sector, basically we can classify into three. That is upstream. Upstream mainly pertains to the exploratory development, drilling activities, then harnessing these crude oil and natural gas through the drilling activity and harnessing at our production facility, and then for the energy requirement. The midstream basically pertains to the storage facility, creating storage facility, transportation, and then downstream is mainly concerned with the refining of crude oil, then doing the marketing for the public at large. Now, the very pertinent question that come up, what is the roadmap for achieving this sustainable development? You all will agree to the fact that the oil industry has got a very vast global footprint and presents an opportunity to have a meaningful and sustainable impact on the attainment of these SDGs. Now, the beauty of all these sustainable development goals, 17 number of goals that have been assigned, they are all interlinked. That is to say, when we bring out interventions in one particular area, like suppose no poverty or elevation of poverty, getting rid of hunger, once we target as these two, first and second, these are the numbers, number one and number two sustainable development goals. So when we target at these two, then we can have a positive, we'll find the positive impact on the other also. This is how it is all interlinked, or we can say it's a set of dependable variables where you can find a linkage. Now, some of the important land features or the landmarks for achieving this sustainable development is sustainable development represents the world's comprehensive plan of action for social inclusion, environment sustainability, and economic development. In fact, these three concepts has derived from the triple bottom line concept, that is people, profit, and planet. So there has to be a judicious interface or the linkage among all these three facets to have the best output. Now, achieving the sustainable development goals by 2030 require a committed cooperation, collaboration among government, non-governmental organizations, public sector undertakings, private sectors across the country. I have already told that we have got a 17 number of sustainable development goals, and as far as the oil sector is concerned, one of the reports says that oil sectors can very well take care of out of 17, 10 number of sustainable development goals, which I'll discuss in the later slides, which are these 10 sustainable development goals. Then some of the priorities sustainable development include good health and well-being. I mean, where will have a very prominent role oil sector to play, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry innovation and infrastructure, responsible consumption and production, climate action, then life below water. I'll speak at large on this topic, life below water, because this is very, very important. Important in the sense you'll be surprised to know that the 70% of the oxygen that we breathe in, mind 70% of the oxygen that we breathe in comes from the phytoplanktons or the sea, I mean the phytoplankton that is there on the seabed. Through the process of photosynthesis, this all carbon dioxide from the atmosphere is taken for the release of oxygen. So you can very well understand what is the role of this marine ecosystem as such in generation of oxygen that we breathe in. So that is why, as a responsible citizen, we have to take all out efforts to make sure that we do not pollute any kind of marine ecosystem, whether it is a river water, it's a pond, or it's the coastal regions. All these are very, very important ecosystem of our earth. Maybe I'll be digressing sometime, but then I always feel that one has to be very passionate about environment, because see, if you have to protect the environment, you need to be very passionate. And passion can only be developed if you understand all nonsense of environment. I mean, what are the problems that we are facing for protecting and preserving the environment? See, these all 17 sustainable development goals which I have portrayed it. See, the basic focus is the different issues that is there outlined here. They have got some of the parameters which are very common. For example, when we say uh, this climate issues, climate change issue or climate action. So if we start taking initiative in this, then we'll be in a position to encompass many of things that will take care of the ecology and the environment. I think you can all go through the all different 17 sustainable development goals. This I've just shown it to have a glimpse of it. Now, what is the roadmap for oil and gas sector? The first and the most important is the policy and the partnership. I mean, the organization have to have a very effective policy and then partnership. Partner in the sense, I mean partnership in the sense you have to see the technical partners or the funding partners we can wherein we can collaborate for a cause. Now, support innovation and deployment of technologies. Again, see, I think in the previous day, there must have been a lot of talks on the technologies, like adopting more and more green hydrogen, then incorporating ammonia also as a next fuel. So when we talk of this all green energy, harnessing all this green energy for meeting our energy requirement. So basically what we are doing, then we are using all this green energy, we are reducing the carbon footprint. Then once you reduce the carbon footprint, basically these all initiatives are part of climate resilience initiative. Probably you will all be aware that at COP26, which was held in the Glasgow, Honorable Prime Minister have been very focused on building the climate resilience. That means he was saying that let us have a proactive methodology in place. We must develop those things so that we are able to be prepared ourselves before any calamity hits us. So preparedness is very important part of our system. Now, with regard to innovation, invest in technology and innovation that will enable the low carbon products and solutions. So we have to basically look for the low carbon technology, low carbon solutions, and the low carbon products. Means when we all have all these things, that's this basically tantamounts to the low carbon footprint. Now, as far as the operations are concerned, advanced emissions reduction initiative. I mean, we have to ensure that greenhouse gas emissions that are coming, that has to be reduced. Then for in our own operations, wherever we operate in support of COP26 meets at Glasgow. I think you all must be aware that the most of the Western countries and the USA has already given a commitment for having a net zero emission target by 2050, and China probably has given to the target 2060, and India had given a target of 2070. So you have to understand why India has given a target 2070. See, basically, as far as the development is concerned, the development index depends upon the energy consumption. And India, we have still a lot of requirement, lot of development activities are still to be undertaken. So we at presently in the current scenario, we have to consume energy, because to bring this the our backward areas again to the in line with the all developed areas. So we need to have more and more energy consumption. But then the question is, can you afford with all this energy which are there? Certainly not. So we have to go for a transition energy, which very well takes care of all different kind of green energy sources. Now, again, this aspect, biodiversity, land and water, is very important for all of us. We have to, there's no other alternative. We have to preserve, protect our biodiversity. And you'll be happy to note that India is very rich in different kind of biodiversity, whether you see it in the land or it is on the marine system. So we are very rich. But then again, once we are very rich, again the concern comes that we have to protect all different facets of biodiversity. Then land ecosystem, and then water. I'll talk about the mangrove ecosystem. See, mangrove ecosystem is such an important aspect where it has got a potential of carbon dioxide sequestration to the tune of almost 10 times than the land forest. So you can very well imagine the marine ecosystem. See, mangrove ecosystem is a part of the marine ecosystem, and see how much potential it has for the carbon dioxide sequestration. Similarly, I was talking about this all seaweed which is there on the seabed, then all these blue-green algae which are there on the seabed in the marine ecosystem. These are all very important and play a very important role in the photosynthesis, and through photosynthesis, it liberates a lot of oxygen, which we all are lucky to breathe fresh oxygen. So I always say conserve, restore, and promote biodiversity and ecosystem services. See, you have got a different kind of ecosystem. Coastal ecosystem is there, where we see recreation facilities are there. We all flock to these coastal areas for recreation, entertainment, and for tours and travel. Then the resource management. This is another important facet, which is very important, because see, the resources which are endowed by the nature, we cannot take it for granted. We have to use it very judiciously, because see, the future generation also has to also survive on these resources. So we have to make sure that we use all our resources that nature has provided us very judiciously. Then again, you must have heard the circular economy. Now, whatever the products, I mean, see the life cycle of the product. So that product has to be used in a such a way that that can be again reused. Now, with regard to the another aspect of government and transparency, we need all public sectors, private sectors have to support in the initiative of government for achieving these all 17 goals by aligning our priorities and accelerating actions. I mean, we have to be proactive in supporting whether be it be PSU or private sectors, we have to come forward and take active participation in lauding the effort of the government. Now, with regard to the communities, see, we have to foster individual and community prosperity through a number of activities like we're talking about. See, corporate social responsibility means is basically when we say CSR and when we say we are public sector undertaking, so this basically when you do all these kind of social development goals initiative that initiative to attain this SDGs, this is basically gives you a social license to operate. I mean, you build a confidence among the community and the society that is there in our operation area. So basically, we take confidence of these people that we are taking all requisite measures for safeguarding their area and at the same time fulfilling their requirement also. So CSR again, corporate social responsibility comes in a big way or to pitch in filling up these gaps, their requirements, poverty alleviations, drinking water facility, healthcare, primary healthcare facility. So these are all very important. So communities has to be very well taken care of. Now, with regard to the thriving workforce, when we talk about thriving workforce, is basically means the workforce that we have employed in our PSUs and other public sectors. We need to sensitize them, make them technically sound, so that they can work very safely and in environmentally safe manner. Now, this is the, I mean, how we can develop or monitor the progress of sustainable development goals. The first thing is that we have to have a established current position. Established current position means it's a kind of basically doing baseline study or baseline survey. That means we basically see at a particular instance, where do we stand? I mean, what are the different areas where we have got a shortcomings or we have got a gaps? So that has to be clearly identified through the establishing current position or basically doing the baseline study. Then among all these 17 SDGs, we have to prioritize which are the SDGs which we need to focus on. That once we identify these all focused SDGs, we have to identify key impact opportunities. Then we have to see what are the areas, key areas where we can have a substantial impact. So that is very important. Then what kind of this is a assess sector apportionment means we have to distribute funds depending upon the sector which we need to focus. Then with regard to the call to action, outline how sector peers and stakeholders can engage with the roadmap. See, any initiative that we intend to undertake, we must take all stakeholders on board so that to have a ultimate satisfaction and have, I mean, basically, I say that whenever we take initiative, let us bring all stakeholders on one platform. Let us have a cohesion of mind. Let us have a cohesion of ideas where we can build on those ideas and we can craft or start a right initiative. Now, this opportunity for oil and gas industry to accelerate contribute to for contribution towards SDGs. Before taking up this, I like to talk about this blue carbon. How many of have you heard about blue carbon? You must have heard of green carbon. Yes? Blue carbon, I said. Hydrogen, I'm not, because hydrogen we have already talked enough previously. So I'm talking about the blue carbon. See, it sounds very interesting, isn't it? Now see what blue carbon is basically, whatever the carbon dioxide it is there in the atmosphere, these carbon dioxide, see, as far as the carbon side emission is concerned, if it is through the natural process, I mean through the natural process means whatever the human beings, I mean we exhale carbon dioxide, or the other living creatures, all other living creatures that exhale carbon dioxide, if without any human intervention. Human intervention means artificial activity. If these carbon dioxide, I mean, whatever the natural carbon dioxide emission is there, if it is there in the system, then this carbon cycle, I think we must have all must have read in class 7th and 8th, this carbon cycle will very is quite apt to handle these all natural carbon dioxide. But the moment we start emitting carbon dioxide through synthetic, through the artificial means, there lies the problem. Now, since through all man-made activities, there have been accumulation of carbon dioxide over a period of time. So these all accumulated carbon dioxide needs to be taken care. Now here the role of blue carbon is very, very important. So now where this blue carbon is, see, that is the reason I always said we must, again I repeat, we must take care of the marine ecosystem. That's a play a very prominent and crucial role in meeting this carbon dioxide sequestration. See, whatever the carbon that is lying underneath, whether it is in our oceans, all this, capture all this carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and they store also. They not only they liberate oxygen, but they store also. And you'll be surprised to know this coastal ecosystem, this sand particles and the soil of the coastal system are almost very good in capturing carbon dioxide. See, you see the coastal area, the way we pollute all this coastal area through your plastics and the uses of eateries and all that. See this, you please understand this coastal soil is so efficient in handling this carbon dioxide, I mean all synthetic carbon dioxide that we generate. So the most important, whatever the ecosystem we have to keep all those ecosystem, all different ecosystems, whether it is a river, estuaries, uh, this ocean, wetland. Again, I'll again explain about the wetland. Wetland is such a fantastic ecosystem. This has got again a huge potential for carbon dioxide sequestration. I mean, it's almost 10 times more than the land forest. So you can very well imagine this wetland. In fact, since PSUs are also there and the private sectors are also there, my request should be to come forward for cleaning these all wetlands and keep restoring these wetlands back into healthy positions. So we can take up, I think PSU and private sectors can come forward and take up this restoration of wetlands. So that will be a noble initiative, I am telling you. And this is nothing but this is for the cause of only we people. I mean, if we have got a good ecosystem, we'll have a healthy people. Let me again share an article on this air pollution. See, in air pollution, I think recently it has come up that because of the air pollution, the quality of air that we breathe in India, the life expectancy has reduced almost 5 years. Or maybe if the same kind of pollution is there, maybe the life expectancy in the next 10 years, it may get further reduced to 7 to 8 years. So you can very well imagine, I mean, what is the role of a healthy air, a good air that we need to breathe in. So again, coming back to the blue carbon, I mean, blue carbon is all those carbons that is taken care by the marine ecosystem. So please be very generous in protecting this marine ecosystem. Now coming back to my topic, opportunities for oil and gas industries to accelerate contribution to sustainable development goals. See, these are the different steps which I'd like to share, like increase commercial viability of the existing low carbon products. We have to focus on the low carbon products, then reduce greenhouse gas emissions, such as more and more usage of sustainable biofuels, green hydrogen, and other solutions like carbon capture and storage through increased investment in innovation and collaboration. See, the role of innovation and collaboration is very, very important. I mean, like-minded organizations or the institution has to come forward, the resources has to pull, because see, in this kind of green initiative, I mean, a small institute or a small organization cannot afford to do the capital investments. So in that case, pooling of resources are required. So if three, four organizations come together for the cause of one initiative, I think that can have a sustainable and impounding impact. Then deploy and where appropriate, advocate for the gas infrastructure that is compatible with the decarbonized gas. See, gas is basically again all green hydrogen and ammonia. So you have to build on green hydrogen more and more. Then renewable, again, there have been a lot of talk on the renewable energy. So these, we have to shift from fossil fuel to these energy transition of green fuels. Then facilities, investment, deployment, and you have to scale up to the large scale natural climate solutions that follow robust environment and social principles. See, climate change issues has caused so much devastating impact in the last 5-10 years. You can see in Uttarakhand the instances of landslide. This has been enormous in the last 2-3 months. And then cases of drought has also increased. A particular locality in India has also faced instances of drought. Then you will surprised to know in the recent there have been a temperature rise in UK to the tune of almost 40 degrees centigrade. I mean, see the life, how life is becoming difficult for the people. So until unless we take all climate resilience initiative means we have to cut down on the greenhouse emission gas, and as it has been told, repeated time and again at the different conference of parties, that we have to keep GHG emission level well to the target of 1.5 degrees centigrade rise in temperature. So these things have to be undertaken. There is no other alternative. Then we have to embed sustainable design and circulatory principles at early project stage and throughout development to increase the sustainability of the project infrastructure, process, and the products. So we have to have more and more focus on the sustainable uses of products. Should I continue, sir?
Then that's what it is.
Okay. Because see, a lot of material is there. If you ask me, I can discuss for an hour and together. But then what are the opportunities that we have as oil and gas sector to accelerate contribution to our sustainable development goals? Now, the first thing that we have to develop a holistic approach to environment management that takes into account direct, indirect, and cumulative impact. See, I have distributed into direct, indirect, and cumulative impact, such as on ecosystem services across the product life cycle and the project life cycle. Then implement environmental management practices that incorporate the mitigation hierarchy to promote biodiversity and ecosystem services with the focus on critical ecosystem and protected areas. See, when we say protected areas, basically protected area involves all our wildlife sanctuaries, forest region, protected forest, all those things. So even these kind of ecosystem also play a very, very prominent role in generating oxygen. Now they improve the use of environmental, social, community, health, and economic impact assessment to identify opportunities to advance contribution to the SDG. See, this again, which I talked about the triple bottom line, that is people, profit, and planet. These three aspects have to be taken care through app and initiative in all the domains. I mean, whether it is for the energy efficient uses or the green energy uses. So all these initiative have to be undertaken, and then we have to scale it up also for protection of environment. Then I've just wanted to share these 6 channels that drive the energy transition and their impact. Now we have to have a decarbonizing energy resources. Now what are the energies? We all know that we have to come up in a big way to focus on the different kind of renewable energy. I think probably yesterday there was a good talk on the geothermal energy. I think where India has got a lesser footprint, but ONGC is coming in a big way in the Ladakh region, in the Puga, where they'll be undertaking 1 megawatt geothermal power project, and this has got a huge potential in area of Ladakh. Mind, Ladakh is a desert region. This is a soil desert region. So it has got a huge potential over there. So, and the best part of it, this geothermal energy has absolutely no kind of any impact on in vicinity or the any environment. Then deep electrification will require extensive energy demand management resources. So we have to again focus on the energy efficiency methodology in all our operations. See, again, we have to focus more on the gas based economy. You have to give more and more emphasis on the gas based economy. Then increasing operation energy efficiency. We have to give a due focus impetus on the energy efficiency. We have to use only energy efficient methodology and the equipments. Then identifying new investment priorities. So we have to look for the different kind of investments in this green area, in the green areas, and where, I mean, again, I'll say, I have explained it earlier that again, pulling of resources will be very paramount importance, and at the same time, collaboration will be quite handy in this. Then deploying new technology. See, whatever the technology we have as of now, we need to harness this new technology from the developed nation, because I'll say the concept of this climate finance, you must have heard of climate finance. This concept of climate finance, in fact, these all developed nations have been given a mandate at COP26. They have to have a $1 trillion climate finance. They have to develop a fund where they have to contribute to the tune of $1 trillion. So there, these developed nations can come in a big way, can pass on the technology for this green energy. Then, with regard to the adjusting to the new policy mandates, international emission restrictions that have to be followed. At times, the Central Pollution Control Board has got its own emission standards. Then World Health Organization has also got its standards. I fully agree that whatever the regulations are there in place of the government of India, that has to be adhered to. There's no doubt about it. But then we have to move beyond all these also. So we have to look for a more and more stringent regulations so that we can perform optimally. Then with regard to the managing consumer and the shareholder expectations, see, shareholders again play a very important role. Like NGO, national governmental organizations, civil society, they play a very prominent role in sensitizing the issue, all burning issue which were plagued with. So their role also has to be appreciated by all. So with this note, so let's just share one more slide. This is important. See, this is basically, just to conclude, I have devised, then what are the, we can have a two-pronged approach in the sense, we can have a vision for the meeting this short-term targets, vis-a-vis keeping in mind the long-term targets. In short-term targets, what as a organization or as a public sectors we can do, I've just cited few examples like replacing older valves and less energy efficient pumps and compressors. These needs to be replaced. I think this can be a short-term measure. Then voluntary flaring reductions. We have to again reduce our greenhouse gas emissions wherever feasible, wherever we are flaring in the oil and gas sectors, we need to reduce them. Then pivoting the natural gas powered fracking. Then installing LIDAR, that LIDAR stands for light detection, ranging and remote sensing method for use of light for measuring the distance. Like if you measure the distance far distance, then this technology is used. Then reduce fugitive emission. I mean, all in pipeline. I mean, see, oil and gas sector has got a huge pipeline network, and emissions, any kind of leakage, fugitive emission, that has to be arrested. So we have to have a system in place, like uh, which monitors this all fugitive emissions, like infrared cameras are there, so we can make use of infrared camera to capture all these fugitive emissions, and so that the apt rectification is taken in time. Then replacing natural gas fired power sources with renewables. Then with regard to the long-term strategy, that should focus on the investing in biofuels and electricity production through green initiatives, green energy, renewable energy. Then increasing power portion of asset and trading portfolio. Then increasing R&D spends on batteries, hydrogen and carbon capture and storage. I think that's from I have many more slides to share, but then nevertheless, I'll end up here. Thank you so much.
क्वेश्चन बाद में पूछते हैं, क्वेश्चन आंसर बाद में करें, अभी चाहिए? आई थिंक एक और इससे
So we'll take up at the end.
कई लोग बोल रहे हैं क्वेश्चन पूछना, क्वेश्चन मैं लास्ट में रखते हैं क्वेश्चन आंसर, अदरवाइज फोकस थोड़ा सा चला जाता है. सो नाउ वी आई रिक्वेस्ट मिस्टर मिश्रा विल बी टॉकिंग ऑन अनएक्सप्लोर्ड एरियाज एंड अपरेंट डिटोर इन आवर quest for green energy. So Mishra ji, please. He is also very passionate about green energy.
पीपीटी लोड कर देंगे. मनोज कुमार मिश्रा के नाम से सेव हो. Respected dignitaries on dais, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I just realized we have passed 12 o'clock. I wanted to speak in the end only because I wanted some extra time, but I think we've run out of time, so I'll be as precise as possible. My topic, I just wanted to emphasize on some areas where perhaps we are not emphasizing enough, and some areas where perhaps we need a course correction. It's my personal opinion, personal view. I am Manoj Mishra. I am Executive Director in ONGC. My plant, in fact, the plant which I am heading, processes LNG. It's not into renewables, but renewable energy is my passion, as Mawar Saab said very correctly. So, please. I wanted to cover three aspects: solar heat, pure electric versus series hybrid, using biofuel, and the third, hydrogen. But due to paucity of time, I will concentrate on the first two. The next. जी मेरा काउंटर व्यू था. चेंज करने के लिए कौन सा है बता देंगे प्लीज. So the first thing I wanted to cover is solar heat or solar thermal. Okay, I thought we do not have enough emphasis on it, but when I heard Chaturvedi Sahab, and I was delighted to know that we are already doing a lot in the field of solar heat. My presentation will be more technical. Okay, I'll take you through some more technical aspects. See, heat is known as a low grade energy and electricity is known as a high grade energy. I think missed some slides. Okay. I wanted to touch upon this aspect also, the reasons for global warming. Number one, sun's rays absorbed by Earth's atmosphere and the Earth itself. This has been happening since millions of years. Okay. Second is the heat thrown into the atmosphere by increasing human activity. Fossil fuel we burn, we throw energy into the atmosphere. And the third is a formation of greenhouse due to gases such as carbon dioxide. So the sun's rays and the heat thrown into atmosphere, they are basically absorbed back. It does not get reflected back enough. So our planet goes on getting hotter. Now here, heat being a low grade energy, most electricity in the world is converted from heat. That means when we are converting electricity from heat, the efficiency is approximately 1/3, which means that we are actually able to extract only 1/3 of the heat. 2/3 we are first thing losing, second warming the atmosphere. Okay, so this actually adds to global warming. When we see the solar ray composition, visible light is 42%, ultraviolet is 8%, infrared, which is basically heat wave, is 50%. When we use solar panels, only the visible light and ultraviolet light are being harvested. The entire 50% of infrared, it is not being harvested through solar panels because infrared is a high wavelength, low energy, so it does not have potential to dislodge a photon. Unless you can dislodge a photon, you cannot use it to make photovoltaic. So basically what I wanted to emphasize is that solar rays contain light as well as heat. We are focusing more on the light part and perhaps we are not focusing enough on the heat part. India being a hot country, we have a lot of incidents of solar heat and we have a very high potential for harvesting it. Here, there is no electronics that is involved. If you want to use photovoltaics, a lot of electronics is involved. This, all you need is some mirrors. Just concentrate the solar heat and you can use it. It is 50% of the sun's rays. By doing this, we'll actually be heating the environment less and getting the energy that we need. This is what I already said. If you can harvest heat energy, in addition to getting free energy, it would be reducing the effect of global warming. There are many human activities where electricity is used for heating. Many human activities where electricity is used for heating. And again, I said electricity is a high grade energy. Converting into heat is not a good idea. Many of these can be avoided by harvesting solar heat. Even the generation of electricity, we can use solar heat for generating electricity. But we'll anyway be throwing away 2/3 of it, but at least we can harvest 1/3. Otherwise, 100% of it is coming to the earth and heating it. Applications could be solar thermal power plants. I guess we have one or two in India, not much. I don't have any idea about it, but I know about one or two solar thermal power plants. It directly uses solar heat for generating steam and then steam-based power plants. We can have solar cookers based on solar heat. There have been recently there have been talk of a solar cooker which is based on solar panel, one solar panel, battery, and a heater. So instead of that, you can have solar cookers based directly on the solar heat. You can simply harvest it from the rooftop by concentrating it, then bringing it down through water and use the hot water to cook. Domestic hot water, most domestic hot waters are based actually on solar panel, one panel and a tank with coils in it. So instead of that, we can use solar heat. And air conditioner based on a vapor absorption cycle. I think Chaturvedi have also touched upon this. See, vapor absorption cycle is the older technology for refrigeration. Earlier, we used to use this cycle technology, but later on, when vapor compression cycle came in, it was much more convenient, and it could be done at a much lesser scale. So we switched on to vapor compression cycle. But vapor absorption cycle, there are two things involved. One is a pump, which needs electricity, and the second stage is heating. So earlier vapor compression absorption cycles, the heat was also from electricity. Now this heat we can give from solar. So it will be much more efficient. Vapor absorption based air conditioners are much more efficient, which because they are assisted by solar heat. So this was my take. There is very little presence of solar heat applications in India, whereas being a hot country, it makes sense to harvest as much solar heat as possible. The second is a counter view again. In vehicle propulsion, should we go for pure electric or hybrids based on biofuels? Some facts here. The first battery electric vehicle in the world was introduced way back in 1881, more than 140 years ago. First electric vehicle in India was BHEL EV. Someone, in fact, we were discussing Reva yesterday. Reva came much later. First, it introduced by BHEL EV minibus. It was in 1980s, but it was mostly used for city transportation and national parks only. There have been ambitious targets by Government of India, internal targets also of many organizations for electric vehicles, but still, even after about 40 years of introduction of electric vehicles, penetration is only about 0.5%. I mean, and of course, of them, majority are three-wheelers. Most suited actually, three-wheelers, because they get time to charge the vehicle as opposed to personal vehicles. So despite having been evolved so much, electric cars are still not selling in volumes, despite being termed as zero pollution vehicles and low running costs. The reason is it's not quite practical. Doesn't find buyers because it is not quite practical. I'll explain why. Another fact, first and only family car is rarely electric. It is acceptable mostly as a second car, only for city use. Intercity travel is mostly not feasible in an electric car. Even with all this range, if you want, I live in Baroda. If I want to go to Surat, 155 kilometers and back, I'll have second thoughts whether if I take my electric vehicle, can I come back home? If it gets discharged in the middle, even fast charge, which is anyway not available by the roadside, fast charge takes 1 hour, and a normal charging at home takes anything between 7 to 10 hours. So it's not practical to have intercity travel on a electric vehicle as of today at least. So here are some more these things. Electric vehicles have some inherent advantages. They are very highly efficient because a motor is used. They have regenerative braking. That means the inertia of the vehicle when it is moving is used to stop the vehicle and back charge the batteries. And there are no idling losses. Any what do you say, IC engine vehicles, you need to have a minimum idling speed. Always the engine must keep running, whereas there is no such thing in a motor. So these are inherent advantages, but despite all this, there is a major issue of practicality. Like, for an example, an IC engine vehicle can take you up to 700 to 1000 kilometers, depending on tank size and average, and can be refilled in 5 minutes, which is good for another 700 to 1000 kilometers. And within that range, you can get 500 filling stations en route. Whereas electric vehicles have limited range, a refill can take 7 to 10 hours, as I said. Even fast charge can take 1 hour. Reasonable amount of charging. And charging infrastructure is still poor in India. Of course, we are working on it. And definitely, not just charging infrastructure, battery technology is also evolving. Battery technology is still not matured. It is still evolving. People are, in fact, trying to get batteries which can be charged in minutes. There are work going on throughout the world, but we are, I think, still some time away. Emphasis has been to pack as much energy as possible in minimum volume, and focus is on increasing range of the vehicle and reducing weight. This has been our focus. But can electric mobility ever match the convenience of an IC engined vehicle? This is very important. If you want public to buy, you have to address this issue. So there can be a more practical idea. This is my suggestion. There can be a more practical alternative, which is also a green alternative. Like a pure electric vehicle has serious limitation of range and recharging time. On the other hand, IC engine by definition is not very efficient. So there are something called hybrid electric vehicles which are already running. So these use the combustion of an engine of a combination of engine of a conventional vehicle with electric motor powered by batteries. So hybrid electric vehicles combine advantages of both IC engines as well as pure electrics. So it is a practical alternative to pure electric vehicle and an efficient and environmental friendly alternative to a pure IC engined car. So in our quest to reduce fossil fuel, it is a good idea to use biofuels as an alternative in hybrid vehicles. So hybrid vehicles again are of two types, series hybrids and parallel hybrids. Most hybrids that we have in India are parallel hybrids. Series hybrids are basically range extended electric vehicles. They are basically electric vehicles, but there is a generator on board driven by an engine. So just like an electric vehicle, we have traction is only electric and wheels are driven by the electric motor. Whereas in a parallel hybrids, both motor and engine can drive vehicle. So this is a parallel hybrid. If you can understand this, engine and battery or motor in parallel, any or both can drive the vehicle. Whereas here, And in series hybrids, it is only the motor which is driving the wheels. Engine through a generator is charging the battery or providing electricity to the motor to drive the wheels. Advantages: only motor drives the wheels, so inherently it is efficient. Regenerative braking is there, so it reduces braking losses. Usually, smaller engine is required. Now, since it is running always at most efficient RPM, you must all know that IC engine vehicles have one RPM, which is the most efficient RPM. You are supposed to run at that. Idling loses fuel. If you accelerate very much, again it loses fuel. But you always need a bigger engine because of all these things. You have to start, stop, acceleration. Because of all these things, you need a bigger engine. But in a series hybrid, you will actually need a much smaller engine, which will serve the purpose. And by nature of being a motor, it has an excellent pickup. Electric motor, can develop a torque at 0 rpm, whereas for IC engine vehicles you need an idling speed. So number of batteries, in fact, weight of electric vehicles has been a very, very big issue. So number of battery cells can also be optimized. In fact, it can reduce some, because range is no longer a priority if there is an engine for a backup. So this is uh, another: no engine idling losses when the vehicle is stopped. Whenever engine runs, it always charges the battery. We can use biofuels in place of fossil fuels. And one more point is, electric vehicles are not necessarily clean. This has been told yesterday also. A lot depends on where the electricity is generated. If you're generating coal-based electricity and running a electric car, it is in fact less efficient than a diesel engine. This is an established fact. So this is my take. An ideal car would be a series hybrid car, complete with energy controller, regenerative braking, with a small and efficient diesel engine run by biodiesel, which meets the strictest emission standard. During parking, we can charge it with a solar powered engine, and it would be a practical car that is actually environmental friendly in every way, and I'm sure people will buy. So this was what I wanted to say. And if you permit, sir, um, there is a video of 2 minutes, if you permit. Hmm? Ek minute. Yesterday, there was a lot of talk about supercapacitors as a way to, as an alternative for storing energy. Supercapacitors, as you know, they can be charged quickly, but they do not hold much energy in them. So I did one experiment myself. This is an experiment done by me in my car. Can I have that video, please? 2 मिनट वाला वीडियो, दो वीडियो है, पहला वाला वीडियो 2 मिनट का. वॉल्यूम. शुरू शुरू से चालू करेंगे प्लीज. As you can see here, during an experiment, see, I disconnect the battery. Disconnected. Completely. And here is what we have is a supercapacitor. This is a combination of 6 supercapacitors in series, each up to 3 volts. That's why I needed 6 of them. 450 farads. It's 480 farads actually. Okay, connected in series like this. So this is a positive terminal, this is a negative terminal. And you can see it's much, much smaller and much, much lighter than the battery. And let's check whether this is connected back to the system. And let's check whether this can start the car. So you can see all I have is a super capacitors, no battery. That's amazing. Quite nice. Okay. Now what I'll do further is try to integrate the battery, get a much smaller battery onto this so that this large battery can be eliminated altogether. That will be sometime in the future. Let us see. Till then, bye. So, so in fact, I have completed that project. The other video is of 9 minutes. I don't know if, yeah, we'll run it sometime later. बंद कर दीजिए उसको, बंद कर दीजिए उसको. So this is what I do. Actually, it takes a long time because at my level, I don't get time at home. It's purely a weekend activity, and that too, those weekends when I'm free. Otherwise, I don't get time for such things. Took a very long time for me to do that. Thank you.
विषय तो पूरा इन्वेंशन कर लिए भाई है आई थिंक हाइब्रिड with biofuel. I think this is a new concept. I think it's good concept. And मुझे लगता है कि आने वाले टाइम में मिश्रा जी बहुत बिजी रहेंगे. मिश्रा जी आप रिटायरमेंट के बाद पूरा एंगेज हो जाएंगे लग रहा है. मिश्रा जी मैं कहा रिटायरमेंट के बाद पूरा एंगेज रहेंगे आप, ऐसा लग रहा है. But this super capacitor idea is really good idea. I think we appreciate the efforts. I think we should give a very big round of applause for Mishra ji. I think I never expected an executive director can get so much of time to develop this. अब पता नहीं वो कैसे टाइम निकालते हैं मुझे नहीं मालूम. तो I think because it was very difficult for us when we were in the position. So now we'll have some question answer. Before that, I'll put up some prospective oil and gas. Because I talk something differently. You know that oil and gas industry, oil and gas production is declining by almost 8 to 10% every year. Worldwide, it's not I'm talking about India. Worldwide, this phenomenon is happening. And the recoveries are in the tune of 35 to 40%. जितना तेल है उसका 30 से 35% ही निकाल पा रहे हैं. अगर हमको इससे ज़्यादा निकालना है तो डेफिनेटली यू हैव टू पंप लॉट ऑफ मनी, लॉट ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी इनटू इट, एंड दैट कॉस्ट मनी. नाउ द ऑयल एंड गैस इंडस्ट्रीज, if you see most of the oil and gas companies, they have converted to energy company now. The reason is because if they pump that much of money in taking out oil and gas, why don't we go to the renewables? That is the reason. That is a shift. That is a transition going on. And that is required. If you see oil and gas in the companies worldwide, if you talk about BP, if you talk about Exxon, or so and so, so many big companies are there. They spend only 1% of their budget for renewables and other work. 99% of their budget is only for oil and gas exploration, exploitation only. So they're reluctant. So once they become an energy company, definitely they're going to divert some of the budgets, because oil and gas company, they make a lot of money. Yeah, oil prices of $100 and $120 you can see the kind of money which are then generating. And the production cost of oil and gas is varying from $10 to 27 to $32. If it is very difficult fields, so $40. If it is deep water, it's about $45. And you're selling it at $140, $120, $100. So now you can understand the amount of profit which is there. Profit margins are almost 50%, which is not there in any other business. And that is the reason you might have seen in India, a lot of oil blocks, people are after that deal. We go and do the exploration, exploitation of oil and gas. But it's not a very easy task. It's a, gambling you can say. वो जैसा शेयर में ना, हमारे सीए साहब बैठे हैं सामने, तो वो किस में पैसा लगा दिया, वो पैसा बनेगा, डबल होगा, ट्रिपल होगा, नहीं मालूम. बट उस वही है कि, बट इसमें साइंटिफिक चीजें हैं. You go, you see that there's some oil present or some fluid is present in the formation, then we drill and then we see that how much oil and gas is available there. So this is oil and gas industry, how they are transforming. This is the reason why the transformation is important for oil and gas industry. Because a lot of you can say technologies to be pumped, and for that you need to spend a lot of money. And that is the reason many oil and gas companies are shifting towards the energy company. So this is one. Another thing, EV and hydrogen. People are talking lot about this. How many of you know that our transport minister came with a hybrid car, hydrogen car? Which car it is? कौन सा? टोयोटा का कौन सा मॉडल? मिराई. टोयोटा मिराई उसका नाम है. And that car has developed so much. Now with one tank of hydrogen, it can run up to 900 kilometers. 900 kilometers. That has been tested. So there are only two companies who are mainly in this. One is Toyota and another is Hyundai, which two are working. Hyundai has come up with a model, I think, Nexo or Nexa or something like that. I don't remember exactly. It's, I think, Nexo. Hyundai Nexo. Not Tata का Nexa नहीं है. I'm talking Nexa है. हाँ. ये है Nexo है. Hyundai का Nexo. Which that is also another. These are two main hydrogen cars. And hydrogen car में एक experiment I was looking at, because it was discussed in one of the conferences. I don't remember the name. I was in Bahrain. They said that the water which is making, it is as pure as RO water, and people are taking water from that exit, from the silencer or what, I don't know what it was, a cylinder type of thing, and they were drinking it directly. So environment friendly. So why we will not go for hydrogen? But only thing is, storing hydrogen in a tank, definitely you need a bulky tank, as on date, because metallurgies will definitely evolve, and we'll find that some metallurgies, lighter metallurgies, like aeroplanes, we were thinking how the heavy airplanes, they have become lighter by use of aluminum. So it's similar thing will happen in case of hydrogen, because hydrogen is very light, can penetrate anywhere in the steel. So carbon steel may not be the right answer, but we may have to go for stainless steel or other better material for storing the hydrogen. So that work is going on in hydrogen also. So that will definitely be the game changer. If you are having such a fantastic thing coming up, so I don't think that people will go for EV is there definitely. If you talk about hydrogen vehicle, hydrogen basically generate electricity only. But only this, we will get rid of these batteries, which are very, very, they are not environment friendly, I can say. Disposing of the batteries will be a big task, maybe in next coming 10 years. So these are the things which I thought, let me share. I was to speak, I had a presentation, but I'll not discuss that presentation. I have told the crux of the presentation, which I wanted to tell, which impacts I just wanted to give. That is the thing which will be there. You know, one thing. Recently, I was going through one of the article. China has funded for almost 12 gigawatt power plants worldwide, and that to coal power plant. Now we want to get rid of coal, but they are five funders. There is a strategic different importance for that. I don't know what they want to do with that, what is their strategy, but at least we should get rid of coal. As Misha was also telling about yesterday, I was also telling, running EV and generating power with the coal is not a right option. This is not an environment friendly options. And another way is oil and gas industry. One more thing they are doing actually, they're going for a blue hydrogen, and what they are doing, they're capturing the carbons. So now you have to spend a lot of money on CCS and CCUS. If you can do that, and why it is important for oil and gas? CCS, if you are capturing the carbon, these carbon dioxides can be pumped back into the formation, from where you are producing oil and gas. Because once you are taking out oil and gas from the formation, what will happen? The pressure will reduce. But to maintain that pressure, if you pump CO2, I think that is giving a very good result. And the recovery factor, which I was telling, 35 to 40%, it can go up to 50%. That has been proved. The only thing is how to store the CO2 and how to transport the CO2 from other places. Like NTPC, a lot of CO2 is being generated. Other plants. So how we can bring that and how we can. So if you can spend something on that, definitely you can decarbonize efforts. You can add to the decarbonization efforts of Government of India. So these are the few things I think your oil and gas industry can do. Will definitely will be environment friendly, because now people talk about, you see, oil and gas most polluting. That tag will go away. We have to do this. Capture the carbon, accumulate carbon credits, and make carbon neutral. So that is these are the few things which were coming to my mind. I thought let me share with you, and these are the things which will happen, and one has to do it. If you're not doing, you will not be in the race. वो कोडक कैमरा वाला जहाँ हाल हो जाएगा नहीं. It's a history now. So one point of time Kodak, and now nobody knows what is Kodak. अभी नए generation से आप पूछेंगे Kodak बोले हमें नहीं मालूम क्या होता है Kodak. So if you talk to the people of 50 plus, they're अच्छा Kodak. अरे भाई उसके तो बहुत सारी रील लाके फोटो खींचता था. It's like that. So we should not be as rigid as Kodak was. So we have to be flexible, and we have to be accepting the realities, and based on, with these new developments and new technology, let us march forward. So that is my talk. I'll not put any presentation, because presentation में बहुत सारी चीजें फिर और भी निकल के आती है जिसको explain करने में फिर time बहुत जाता है. But I wanted to just give you the crux of my presentation, which I prepared for today's thing. So with this, come to end of the session. Now question answer. So I think some of you have some questions to Rajiv, and if you have any questions, you can come up. Pankaj कहाँ गए? पंकज को भी क्वेश्चन था. आई थिंक यू वर आस्किंग वन क्वेश्चन है. माइक हाँ वो 2-3 क्वेश्चन है. 2-3
हेलो सर. सर माय क्वेश्चन टू राजीव सर. सर हम ये अपने गैस बेस्ड इकोनॉमी की बात कर रहे थे. वी नो हम 50% गैस तो हम इंपोर्ट करते हैं. व्हाई शुडंट वी फोकस ऑन सर ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन और ब्लू हाइड्रोजन or wind power, because at present we are producing only 40 gigawatt of wind power, whereas as per research work up to 100 meter of height our India potential is 302 gigawatt, and at 120 meter height our India potential is 695 gigawatt, but till now we have achieved only 40 gigawatt of wind power. So I think we should focus on these things only, because gas-based economy we are importing I think 50% of gas from outside. So I think we should invest more money in the new energies, hydrogen, where we have potential to export hydrogen. We become exporter.
See, as far as the present viable option that we are with right now, see, green hydrogen and always see we need to further work on it. But as of now, we have to look for the options. So
Sir,
gas is
sir, excuse
another.
me. That's why I'm asking about blue hydrogen, because in India we have a big coal reserve. We can produce brown hydrogen. Then we convert that brown hydrogen to a blue hydrogen. In blue hydrogen there is a large scope of carbon capture and storage option there. So it means by having a blue hydrogen, we can become exporter of hydrogen, and we can produce electricity by using a hydrogen.
Do you know the problem that is associated with the economics that is involved with the hydrogen?
No, yes,
And
sir.
presently,
Sir, at present, world production of hydrogen is 80 million ton. Is it out of the 80 million ton, 95% production is produced from SMR process, steam methane reforming process, which is producing lot of carbon dioxide emission. For reducing the carbon dioxide emission, we need either green hydrogen or blue hydrogen. I know at present, for producing green hydrogen, price of green hydrogen is $5 to $6 per kg, whereas cost of a gray hydrogen, the SMR process, it is 1.5 to $2 per kg. And if we are using blue hydrogen, if we are using carbon capture technology, it will increase cost by $0.5. It means $2 per kg we can produce blue hydrogen. So at present we are not in position to produce green hydrogen because cost of green hydrogen is very high as compared to grey hydrogen. But we can put our effort to produce blue hydrogen. Then it's a feasible option.
I think you're right. मैं जवाब देता हूँ इसका. This you are very right. Blue hydrogen is an option. I don't know whether you have heard about it. Ambanis are coming up with a big plant
yes.
for blue hydrogen. So they will be producing quite a big, substantial amount of blue hydrogen because they have a CCS and CCUS in place, and they are working on it. So once they started, I think the other will also follow it. So your suggestion is very right. I think we should go for blue hydrogen first
Sir,
because the
sir,
cost is about $2 approximately.
Sir, my only concern is that because, sir, as we are generating only 40 gigawatt of wind power, why we are investing more money to wind power plants so that when the potential of India is 302 gigawatt at 100-meter height and 695 gigawatt, we should invest more money into this wind power plant or offshore wind plant because we haven't got any offshore wind power plant till now. Whereas whole world is generating a lot of power through offshore wind turbines.
Yeah. Because the viability study has been done on offshore wind plant also. ONGC is also planning to have some on their platform, not a floating type. The reason is if you are going for a floating type of this, the maintenance cost and all other costs, if you see, the production cost will be very high to the tune of about 5 rupees per unit, which is very high as compared to solar, which is below $2, to 2 rupees. So that is the reason. But they're searching, they have a tie-up with some Norwegian company and they're seeing for the technology which can reduce the generation cost, basically. That is one thing and will definitely happen. As you said about 100-meter and 120 meters, definitely the potential is very high. But the wind plant producers, those who make the plants, they at present they have the limited capacity to produce wind turbines of 100 and 120 meters. So they are in the process of upgrading their facilities. And once, like Switzerland is also working on that up to 120 meter with about 3 megawatt plants with one turbine. So that is going on. They have come up with the two megawatt turbines, but not three. So that work is going on. Worldwide, if you see the 5 megawatt are also available. So these technologies we want to develop indigenous. Importing is one thing that can be done. Then the maintenance and all things. So in the Atmanirbhar Bharat concept, I think these developments are taking place. Maybe another 2-3 years time, you will see we will be very rich in wind power, which is a clean energy.
So actually, I have one concern. Actually, when we are competing with worldwide, At present, our new energy capacity is 114 gigawatt, because China's capacity is 1,000 gigawatt. And they are manufacturing solar modules themselves, China.
Actually, I think this discussion we can continue later on, because now
problem. Thank you, sir. Thank
we
you.
have another session lined up. So our speakers are there already. Police issue कर देते हैं. So we'll give mementos. पंकज कहाँ चले गए? हाँ, पंकज जी नहीं है. हाँ जी. नहीं, नेचुरली हो तो हम आए, वो छुपे रुस्तम निकल गए मिश्रा जी. Yes.
You have talked about series and parallel. Now there are certain smart hybrids which use combination of series and parallel.
Yes.
In fact, all vehicles today, Toyota Prius जो है ना, उसमें you can run in series mode also.
Exactly. So I own two pairs. I own two pairs. So I know that it has the best part hybrid.
But उसमें difference.
Government will also give incentive for hybrid.
Yes.
On
That point I will definitely take up.
Yeah, बाद में.
So now
we'll talk to you.
We have Mr. Mishra and Rajiv on the. So I request for Mr. Rajiv Kumar, I request Mr. Kopeshwar Kumar Singh, CFO, ISPRL, to give a memento. Rajiv Kumar. Rajiv Kumar. I request Mr. Naveen Rawat, he is there, if he is there. Ireda. Mr. Mishra. Thank you. I will start the next session. We have Sri S. Raviji. He is a chairman of Tourism Finance Corporation of India. He is with us, and I request him to come to the dais, please. We have Mr. Sonak Saha. He is a partner E&Y. I think Mr. Shah is here. Sonak ji आए हुए थे. अच्छा, वो presentation. Mr. Alok Raj Gupta is stuck somewhere, but he was calling. But I said, okay, you come. We'll see what. We'll listen to you later on. But now we'll start with these two gentlemen here. Both are very passionate. तो पहले राजीव जी का करना है, क्योंकि राजीव जी को जाना है. I think he has another meeting lined up at what. So I request Sri Rajiv ji come and give a.
Sri S. Raviji is a chartered accountant. He is the director of, he is the chairman of the Tourism Finance Corporation of India. He was the chairman of BSC also, and he has been director in many board, IDBI Bank and many other board also. So I welcome Sri S. Raviji to address us. Thank you. Thank you.
Namaskar to all of you. Thank you, Deen Dayal ji, for and CSR Foundation for inviting me. It's a privilege to be here. And I was hearing and I was seeing the curriculum of the whole program. It is a marvelously done program. And there are a lot of experts. I just heard ONGC executive director. I saw a lot of people from IREDA, and my thought process on energy is there is a technical aspect and there is a financial aspect, and then there is a disclosure and reporting. So there are 3-4 different areas of the whole green energy scope, and all this will come and merge together, and which will make a holistic approach on green energy. Green energy, as we go across and see, it is a concept which has been climate change. Green energy is a theme of today. As we see the IT revolution, we also see the green revolution, and people like I have been following IREDA. I was the auditor also for IREDA at one point of time. So I have seen the way IREDA itself has grown in terms of solar, wind, etc., etc. Similarly, you see all other fields. Everybody has shown a growth path in their respective field, and the reporting also has substantially increased. But at the end of it, it is all about money. It is all about nature, but it is also about having to make money. Any entrepreneur does look at not only saving the planet, but looks at also the revenue. And that is why it is very important as we go across, all this get translated into financial terms. And I must tell you this, and I want you all to look at it. As BSc chairman, we introduced something called as the ESG fund. You won't believe the ESG fund had a better return than the normal mutual fund return. So, so that is how you convert into people getting into green energy. You also, the regulators are pushing for more and more disclosures, the effectiveness of all this. So I think what is happening is, because they are driving reporting standards, there is also this great awareness of green energy. And I can tell you, we did talk about a lot of green energy here. I just had visited Varanasi very recently, and there's a new project by energy, which is of course an old concept but a new plant, and I was very, very excited to see the plant. So there is a lot of thought process. Even NTPC, even BHEL, even all other organizations are now looking towards green and cleaner energy. And even in the coal sector, if you look at what green coal, so as to say that it is all being translated. So there is a lot of awareness that is there. Then we are talking of EV. The EV vehicles have their own constraints, because 70% of the EV vehicles are, all the components are imported, the control panel, the battery, etc., etc. And how do you bring capacity and investment into this, so that tomorrow EV vehicles become very successful? Because not only do we have to have the money, but we have to build capacities, got to go indigenous, because we cannot depend on imports. We have to become self sufficient, atmanirbhar, and that is what is the key as far as I am concerned. So it is not a change that will happen overnight. It's not a push of a button. It's a gradual change. It will be a change which will be going on, and it's a perpetual change which will happen. And I think that is, every citizen, every corporate, government will endeavor to change this. The forest fires everywhere. So I think there is a push, people are aware of it, and I think all the components, technically, commercially, financially, disclosure, reporting, and giving credit to people who do that, is going to be a very, very composite effort on green energy. That is what all I have to say. It's a long topic. How do you measure ESG? How do you report ESG? There can be many, many aspects that can go across. I don't want to take much time. You have a very good speaker right after me, so I think we'll hear from him. And I thank Deen Dayalji for inviting me. I wish I could spend some time. Due to some personal this thing, I have to leave. But I wish I can spend more time here. Could have spent more time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Raviji. I think he has to leave for some personal reason and some meetings. So I request Mrs. Shakil Ahmed to give a moment to Mr. S. Ravi. Now we have another passionate speaker, Mr. Sonax. I heard about him because in ONGC he's doing quite a good amount of work. And when I spoke, somebody come from ONGC to talk on this, but they said, no, 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 we have an excellent speaker, excellent person who can deliver on the subject very passionately. And that is Mr. Sonak Shah. He's come from Calcutta. He is from ENY. So I request Sonak Shah ji to please come and
Thank you, sir, and thank you, CSR Research Foundation, for inviting me to speak on ESG and what's happening overall on environmental social governance in India. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for giving me a patience hearing. And I would be short because I know I'm standing in between the lunch. So what I'm going to cover today is we have been hearing a lot about environmental social governance, so to say ESG, over the last few years. And I would say a post-COVID session, we have also been experiencing a lot more conversation around ESG. Today, as we speak, we open any print media today in the morning, or we look at social media, there have been a lot of conversations going on about environmental social governance and how an organization should embed ESG into the overall business decision making process. And it should not be looked at as a standalone strategy for the organizations as to how they progress on overall sustainability and ESG, but to be made more integrated within the corporate strategy of the organization. Now, from professionals like us who have been walking into this domain for 2 decades now, and for us, ESG is nothing new. We have all been deliberating a lot on sustainability all these years. ESG is just a new term which has been coined by mostly the investors community. And earlier, we have seen sustainability. The classical definition of sustainability was routed to the triple bottom line performance of a company, which is on people side, planet side, and the profit side, which is now a little bit differently coined as ESG. So what I will do is I will just quickly take you these few slides, and please, stop me anywhere wherever you have a question. Now, why we suddenly see a surge on considerations towards ESG? So, World Economic Forum, so they kind of do a global research every year, and they publish a global risk report. And this is through a this is through a detailed consultation process, and they consult the board of directors of many multinationals, including some of the Fortune 500 companies, and want to understand what should be the risk register of a company. And you see on this slide, there are multiple dots, okay? And I just want you to highlight, if you look at the green colored dots, that typically represents the environmental risk of a company. The red ones represent the social risk, and the blue ones are the economic risk. So if you look at 10 years back, 2010, 2011, when they were publishing this report, the top 5 risk of a company, be it in terms of probability of occurrence, or the impact of occurrence. Both were mostly like financial or economic risk. But as we move along over the next 10 years, the risk register has significantly changed. And in 2020, this is the first year when all the top five risks highlighted by these Fortune 500 companies are all environmental risks. And then, of course, in 2021, we also got to see some of social risk also because of the COVID. So this technically demonstrates that overall the risk register of any global organizations are moving from a traditional financial risk to the non-financial risk, which might be either your environmental risk or social risk. Now, is it only from a risk per se? That's why we are talking about ESG today, or there are a lot of other opportunities also. And that's where the role of our stakeholders come today. If we are talking to our investors, and I will present certain statistics with them as well. If we are talking to our investors, if we are talking to our customers, our suppliers, our regulators, almost every stakeholders are now demanding more information of how an organizations look at ESG. How do they identify some of these non-financial risk of an organization which might impact their performance, and what is the overall risk management strategy, the risk governance framework that they have to manage this kind of risk. So every stakeholder today are asking too much of disclosure from an organization, mostly from listed companies, but equally applicable for unlisted companies also, that how they are managing this climate change sustainability related risk. So now, what is ESG? If we just need to decode, because there are a lot of misconceptions also. So there are three dimensions of ESG: environmental, social, and governance. Under the environmental pillar, we look at the company's performance and how it's like impact the overall environment, through their operations. And we look at aspects like how much energy an organization is consuming, what is the percentage of that energy is coming from fossil based sources, or how much of it is coming from renewable sources, what is your water consumption, how much wastewater do you generate, do you have a wastewater treatment facility, how much waste you generate out of your operations, hazardous waste, non-hazardous waste, and what is the overall waste management practices that you follow, and overall climate change also being very, very critical. So how your operation is aggravating the impact of climate change, and to that extent, what's your take on mitigating the impact of climate change. So those are some of the aspects that we generally cover under the environmental dimension. Under social dimension, it all talks about how you engage with your stakeholders. And stakeholders, as I mentioned, like it can be anyone who is directly or indirectly involved into your business operations, can be your investors, can be your customers, your suppliers, your employees, regulators, media. Everybody is a stakeholder today, right? So under social dimension, we try to look at how we engage with our stakeholders and create value not only for the business, but also create value for our stakeholders to make the business more sustainable in the long term. And there are aspects like, if I talk about the employee value creation, we talk about occupational health and safety, we talk about employee well-being, we talk about learning and development of our employees, we talk about diversity ratio in the board and as well as in the workforce, safety. So all those are like social parameters. Similarly, corporate social responsibility. We already have a mandate for listed companies here in India, like 2% of our profit to be invested into CSR. So those kind of information is generally demanded under the social dimension. And governance is nothing different from what we already have as a part of corporate governance, but more inclined, more disclosure to come on how the corporate governance of an organization is also integrating the identification of ESG risk within the organizations, how they are managing it. Do they have a, let's say, special committee in the board, though currently it is not mandated as per SEBI, but do we have a committee in the board, or at least a management level committee, to identify this risk and manage this risk? And there are many policies which we need to deal with when we talk about ESG. There are many policies, management systems, that's all generally come under the governance part of it. So just to give you a quick glimpse of how stakeholders are demanding for this information. So in EY, we have been doing a institutional investor survey. We launched this survey in 2013, almost like close to 10 years back. And as a part of this survey, every year we are reaching out to 300 plus global institutional investors. And it's not only the investors in the US market, we have got a fairly equal representation of investors from EMEA, APAC region. And we have been asking them that what is their overall take on ESG and do they have any kind of formal evaluation before they take an investment decision. Now, if you look at when we launched this survey in 2013, only 64% of the investors said that they have some sort of a ESG evaluation. But having said that, ESG related consideration was never a rule maker or a rule breaker. It was more of a due diligence, more of a tick box exercise just to get some basic information before they wanted to invest into a particular company or in a portfolio. But again, as we move along, there are a lot of developments which have happened. UNPRI, United Nations Principle for Responsible Investment, has come up, and they have got about 7, 8 responsible investment principles. And if you look at any of the large institutional investors today, be it BlackRock, KKR, JPMC, Goldman Sachs, so all of them are party to this UNPRI. And as a part of they being a signatory to UNPRI, it becomes important for them to understand what kind of portfolio they are investing, what is the subsequent risk of that portfolio from a ESG perspective. Because if you look at a pension fund today, which is all running with public money, they're severally responsible to the government also to ensure that the public money is invested into a right set of portfolio which will generate return for the public as well as for their business. So overall, as a part of these responsible investment principles, all these large institutional investors are as a part of their decision making process. And today as we speak, this is no more like just a simple tick box exercise or kind of a due diligence that needs to be done for proper health checkup, but it is more of for the investors to decide whether they want to continue with a particular portfolio or not. And that's where it is heading towards. And when I talk about these slides, I often get a feedback like, whether in India, in the Indian capital market, do we have any of that sort of an investors who are asking for ESG information? So this is important that National Stock Exchange in 2020, they kind of did a study to find out what is the sentiment of the Indian capital markets. And they constituted a special index called ESG Sector Leader Index. So these are a list of 100 companies which are fairly matured in their ESG journey in India. And they compared this index performance with Nifty 100. So over the long years, the performance of both the indices were pretty similar. But the interesting finding was in 2021, when we were badly hit by COVID and all. So these are the set of companies, this ESG 100 Sector Leader Index. So these are the set of companies which has got the shortest turnaround time, which means a company which has got a good governance on ESG risk management are better resilient in terms of all unforeseen risk, and their stock definitely performed better in 2021 as compared to the other Nifty 100 set of companies. So that clearly shows that why investors today are more keen to understand about how a company is managing their ESG risk. And last year onwards, last 2 years onwards, in fact, we have also seen a lot of ESG related mutual funds have been rolled out. A lot of private sector companies are also going for green bonds or sustainability linked bonds to raise capital, which can be further invested into green energy type of projects. So all those changes are happening quite significantly even in India also. And therefore, it becomes very, very important that we become cognizant and we start taking action. A little bit from a consumer perspective, again, this is a survey which we have been doing almost every year. And post-COVID, this change is more starting in the post-COVID phase, where we see almost 59% of the consumers being surveyed. They have a deep preference towards products which have been manufactured in an environmentally and social friendly manner. So today, as we see, when we go for, let's say, online e-retailing platforms, so, the product manufacturers are disclosing a lot more information about how the product is being manufactured. What is the overall impact? What is the carbon footprint of the product? Because this is like the generation next people have been asking. They want to understand how the product is being manufactured, what kind of impact is being created. And this is again a preference which is being evidenced through the Indian consumers. Now, regulatory landscape. Globally also, there are a lot of regulations changes which are happening, and I will deliberate briefly on that. But in India also, we have been seeing that it's one of the countries which have been very, very fast in terms of adopting environmental regulations. And in my experience, at least, I have seen whenever an environmental regulations in India has been taken up, of course, there could have been deferral in terms of implementation, but it has never been withdrawn. with the recent regulations on even desulfurization of thermal power plants also, I think that's what's one of the examples. So a lot of regulations, we look at the plastic waste regulations, extended producers responsibility, e-waste, battery waste, and recently the SEBI BRSR. SEBI BRSR is again nothing new. It was introduced way back in 2012 for starting with the top 100 listed companies, and slowly it got extended to top 1000 listed companies. But now it has been made much more robust, and it demands for a lot more information as compared to the previous SEBI BRR. So we will talk about it also. Yeah. Now, as we speak, ESG so far do not have any kind of country-specific requirement. I mean, unlike, let's say, financial reporting, the non-financial reporting frameworks are yet to be matured. There are a lot of researches which are going on globally, and we are also trying to draw elements from all those global research, global work only, to understand that what should be the optimum way of reporting your performance under ESG. So today we have multiple frameworks that we generally follow. Global Reporting Initiative, GRI. This is a not-for-profit organization based out of Amsterdam, and they first launched a framework to report on sustainability performance of a company, which is based on the principle of triple bottom line: people, planet, and profit. Over the years, GRI framework has also gone through multiple set of revisions, and now it is a full-blown standard. We call it a GRI standard. And in India, currently, there are close to 200 plus 250 companies which are publishing their information on sustainability performance following the GRI framework. Then comes the integrated reporting framework. While GRI was gaining momentum, but at the same point of time, there was a demand coming up that still GRI framework-based reports come as a standalone report. So for every listed companies, you have got an annual report and you have got a GRI-based sustainability report. Many times they are also being published at two different point in times, and these two reports do not talk to each other. So for the analyst community, it becomes very difficult to understand how the sustainability performance or the non-financial performance of a company might impact the financial performance, and vice versa. So realizing this, there have been a lot of debates going on globally, and in 2010, the International Integrated Reporting Council was formed, again a not-for-profit organization, and represented by many academicians, chartered accountants, consultants, and globally experts who have been researching on corporate reporting. And they came out with a framework which is integrated reporting framework, or we call it as IR framework. This is like one report wherein we will talk about both your financial as well as non-financial performance, and we'll try to explain the interplay between the two. SEBI has already recommended the top 500 listed companies in India to adopt integrated reporting framework. This circular came way back in 2017. Of course, it's a voluntary adoption. It's not mandated yet. But if I look at the trend generally, today we see most of the large listed companies are migrating from an annual report to a integrated reporting framework. TCFD is another framework which is gaining very significant momentum, specifically with the investors. So every business today are running with certain climate change risk, and this risk might happen either from events, let's say climate-related events, for example, a cyclone or a flood or a drought, okay, which might impact your operation and result in financial losses, or it could be due to certain transitional risk. So certain new policies are formed, certain new regulations are formed, okay, certain new technology might come up, which might again start impacting your business. So TCFD framework allows a company to report on both physical risk as well as transition risk of a company, and how the company is managing this sort of climate change related risk. And this is something which is being regulated in many parts of the world, and currently even in India also it's a consideration. Now, interesting part is, though investors have started focusing on the ESG performance of a company, they also rely a lot on third-party indices, and there are a lot of third-party rating indices which are now operating in India, who evaluate a company's performance on sustainability, and they give them certain performance score. And plenty of them are there. CDP is one of them, Climate Disclosure Project. Then we have got Dow Jones Sustainability Index, which is now a part of the Standard and Poor. We have got Morgan Stanley, we have got Sustainalytics, and many of them. Now, interesting part is most of these rating indices will look at the annual report of an organization, the sustainability report of an organization, or whichever information is made available in the public domain, corporate website, social media, investors presentation, and basis those information, they would be evaluating the company's performance and generate a score. And this is interesting because this score will subsequently be made available to the investors also, so that they can take an informed decision. So you see that there are a lot many such indices. Some of them focus on only one dimension of ESG. For example, CDP focuses mostly on the environmental dimension, whereas some of them are very, very comprehensive, like S&P Global. They have equal amount of focus on all three dimensions. Now, interestingly, all their methodologies, rating mechanism, rating methodologies could be different, but fundamentally, if we look at, all of them are focusing on certain basic parameters for evaluation. And this score, once the company scored on their ESG performance, you will be able to see the scorecard of the company also. Yeah. So for example, this is just a sample scorecard of a company from different indices like Morgan Stanley, Refinitiv, S&P Global, Dow Jones. So what they give a composite score of the company, and they also give a score on three dimensions: environmental, social, and governance. And under each of these three dimensions, sub-dimensional scores. Say for example, environment, what's your score on climate change? What's your score on your water efficiency? What's your score on waste management? So you will be able to see how raters are rating your performance, and you will also be able to see how you stand with respect to some of your peers in the industry. Who are the peers doing better on certain aspects? Who are the peers not doing so well? And there is a global ranking also, and all this information, as I mentioned, is publicly available, and therefore it's a risk. If we are not disclosing our performance properly, then we always run with a risk of getting a lower score on some of these indices, which again could be difficult for us to go when we go and meet the investors. And that's one of the reasons why SEBI also started becoming very proactive, understanding that we need to understand these rating mechanisms. And incidentally, most of these rating organizations are global, so they have a different way of evaluating. They follow the European Code of Governance, which is not what we follow typically here in India. We have our own code of governance, right? So some sort of a Indianization is requirement, and that's the only reason why this SEBI BRSR revolution was taken up by SEBI. And over the last 2-3 years, even if I look at from a global landscape per se, also a lot more new regulations started coming up. Incidentally, you all have seen Mr. Biden, after taking up the presidential position, the first thing which he did is commit to the Paris Agreement, which was so much debated all these years, right? And in US, the SEC rules also mandated all listed companies to publish their climate change risk following that TCFD framework. Same thing applies to UK. UK has also mandated all listed companies to publish their climate change related risk following the TCFD framework. If I look at European Union as a region, lot many regulations have come. One of this is CSRD, which is Corporate Social Reporting Directives, very similar to what we have in India right now as a part of BRSR. CSRD is also mandating almost large listed companies, almost 50,000 plus companies would now need to report on their sustainability performance every year. It's going to be applicable from this year only, so that the reports will start coming from next year. Another initiative which European Union countries have taken up is a CBAM mechanism, Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. Now, this is interesting because if I look at the European manufacturing, a lot of it is now migrated to many other countries where, technically speaking, the regulations related to carbon emissions may not be as stringent as what we see in Europe. In Europe, we have got a European Union emission trading scheme, and a ton of CO2 emission is traded as high as 80 euros to 100 euros, right? But there are many countries where they are importing from, where there may not be such a high carbon regulatory mechanism. So what they are doing is, if you are importing a product to Europe from any other parts of the world, then at the border you have to pay a tax which is as good as or as high as what is being paid if it is being manufactured in Europe. So this is called Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, and this is going to impact the whole global export business significantly, because it might impact the competitiveness for any product which we are exporting from here in India. So, we have to pay the tax at the border, which might make our product also a little bit competitive, less competitive in the market. So, I think a lot of regulatory changes are happening. Now, while globally all these regulations were happening, SEBI also took it up in India. They were understanding that while we have a BRR framework in India starting from 2012, but the information that we get as a part of BRR disclosure from the listed companies are quite qualitative in nature. We hardly present any kind of quantitative performance data as part of SEBI BRSR. So that was one of the key limitation for the Indian companies to get a good score on some of these third-party rating indices. So that's the area when this SEBI formed this committee, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs formed this committee to evaluate that what should be the framework that we should follow as a country. And we started drawing elements from all the global reporting framework like the GRI or the integrated reporting framework and came up with this new BRSR framework. Now, currently it is applicable from this financial year 22-23 and applicable for all 1,000 listed companies, top 1,000 listed companies by market cap. And some of the principal difference what I see from the previous BRR, number one, it is much more extensive. Previous BRR was asking for only some 50-60 KPIs to be reported. Whereas if I look at SEBI BRSR right now, it is asking as close to as 300 KPIs, key performance indicators. There are two types of indicators. One is an essential indicator and one is a leadership indicator. Essential indicators, no compromise. Every company would need to report on those set of indicators. Leadership indicators, you have a choice. It's not mandatory, but mature organization would also like to go for leadership indicators. So that's very, very significant difference in terms of the coverage of BRSR. The second thing, what I see from a BRR to BRSR perspective, BRR was focusing only on performance of your own organization. Whereas if I look at BRSR, it also demands information to be taken from your suppliers, supply chain partners. Because why it is happening is India has got a significant MSME sector, which is contributing largely to the GDP. Now, for India to become, let's say, carbon neutral economy by 2070, it's very, very important. This sector also grows. This sectors also become more sustainable. Now, therefore, government also wants to create that push factor through the large corporates, who will be working back with these MSME players who might be there in their supply chain to help them align with their larger sustainability vision and improve their overall sustainability maturity. So one key difference from BRR to BRSR is BRSR also demands information from your supply chain. And this is one area where I see most of the listed companies are also facing a lot of challenges. Yeah. So there are three sections. I'm not getting into the details of these things. There are three sections of a BRSR, general disclosure, which is more about the company, its operation, its business, what are the products they are manufacturing, what are the countries they are exporting. So all those kind of information, what is the total turnover, profit after tax, those kind of information. The second one is more about management disclosures, where we talk about what are the different management system do we have to identify all non-financial risks, what are the governance structure that we have, what are the policies that we have. BRSR demands a lot more policies to be made available and then implementation of that. So what kind of management structure, system, policies that we have in place. And last is a principle-wise disclosure, and there are about 9 principles, which was there earlier also with BRR. Only thing is the coverage of the principle has been made more extensive and lot more indicators are now need to be reported. So that's more from the coverage perspective. So these are the 9 principles which we had as a part of the national voluntary guidelines and still continued in the BRSR also. The changes I already talked about. What are the key changes from BRR to BRSR? Yeah. Now this is interesting. Now BRSR is also going to have a scoring, and Indian Chartered Accounting Institute is already working on a methodology which is going to work on based on the information that a company discloses as a part of the BRSR. It can be scored as level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. So they are currently deciding on certain criteria. In fact, under ICAI now there is a separate chapter for Sustainability Reporting Standard Board. And the task of this standard board is to look at most of the international standards and how they can be Indianized and what could be made more effective for Indian companies to adopt. So there are already one standard which has come up from this SRSB of ICAI, which is on how to account for carbon emissions. There are certain more standards which are being currently developed, and going forward, we see like lot more guidance are going to come from the Chartered Accounting Institute, SEBI, as well as MCA, in terms of how a company is required to report on their sustainability performance following the BRSR. So I'll just stop my presentation here. If there is any questions, would be happy to take those questions.
Anybody has question?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanak. Thank you.
I have a question for Mr. Shonak. Yeah, what I could gather from the presentation that the main advantage of a high ESG rating or a good BRSR report is to attract more investment. Apart from that, can we have another, like you can say, a noteworthy advantage that this is the
See, of course, the first preference is to attract more of the investors. And currently, if I look at the CFOs of the organizations, they are also looking at how do we diversify the investors' portfolio for a better investor space, working on the overall, how do we reduce your cost of borrowing and all of that. So, which is one of the key reasons for the companies to go for a high ESG rating. But at the same point of time, if I look at from the nature, the way the consumer side is also changing, and specifically companies who are into B2B business and supplying to, let's say, some of the European customers, they are making it mandatory. All of them are now having certain supply chain guidelines. Okay. And in fact, Indian companies have also started rolling out sustainable supply chain policies, guidelines, okay, wherein before they onboard a particular supplier, they want to do some sort of a due diligence in terms of what is the overall sustainability practice that they have been following. So my point of view is ESG rating is of course mostly for the investors, but having said that, this also gives a complete balanced scorecard of a company's sustainability performance, which might impact your consumers also, which might impact your employees also. Today, if you look at many young employees, they want to work for an organization which is driven by a purpose, which is not driven by only, let's say, the profit mentality, but organization which is driven by a long-term purpose. So all those changes are happening, and therefore it becomes very, very important that we have a decent score at least on some of these ESG rating indices.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sanak. Thank you very much for an excellent presentation. I think this is a good lesson for who are aspiring for a position in the board. I think many of I'm seeing a lot of young people are sitting here. So if you're aspiring for a position in the board, I think these are the things which you all have to take care of. Otherwise, there are a lot of issues which can come. So I really appreciate Sanak for excellent presentation. A big round of applause for Mr. Sanak. So we have CEO of Green Tech Foundation. So I request Mr. Saran to come and hand over a memento to Mr. Sanak for that excellent presentation. So we'll break for lunch and we'll reassemble at 1:40, 2:40. Sorry, 2:40. As for the timing, we are just late by 4 minutes. So we'll assemble back at 2:40, 2:30, not 2:40. I think that will be okay for the next two sessions.